Hello, romance lovers. Today's story is called A Spy Got Five Princes. If you enjoy our videos, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on more exciting stories. The Holy Grail was safely returned to its homeland. The main character realizes that she was supposed to steal the Holy Grail for Lewis, but the young lady does not understand why everything turned out this way. One of the servants reports that a spy has infiltrated the Link Empire, who dared to encroach on their most sacred treasure. Therefore, now the princess of the kingdom of Darkcourt, Marie de Darkcourt, is sentenced to death by burning for her crime. When the main character turns around, she sees Louis there. The blonde man turns to him and thanks him for the fact that Pierre's Louis came from the kingdom of Rutonia itself. The young man claims that he could not have imagined that his ex-fiancée would commit such a grave sin. So Louis takes up the torch and claims that as her ex-fiancé, he will take it upon himself to get rid of her personally. Maria turns to the prince and thinks that although the guy wants to finish her off, his sympathy turns out to be very high. The main character looks at this counter, and the prince claims that he knows about Marie's gift, because the girl is able to see another person's affection towards herself. And this is a very convenient ability for a spy like her, because the young lady wanted to steal the Holy Grail in order to put an end to the war that was plaguing her homeland. Maria just asks what the young man is doing there, and the guy says that everything went exactly according to plan. After all, he gave her to the kingdom, and in return, he will receive the grail. The young man claims that they simply caught Maria in a trap from which the girl could not escape. The young lady asks if their relationship was a lie from the beginning and if the guy never loved her. But the prince denies it and says that he loves the girl. The lady with silver hair is a little surprised. And the guy with a crazy smile claims that Maria was very useful to him. So how can he not love her? When the main character looks at the counter, she sees a very large number there, and the young man throwing a burning torch. He says that he loves the girl, so he is the one who will cleanse her of her sins. The guy also claims that the young lady must be lonely to die like this, but she needn't worry because her whole family is already waiting for the girl on the other side. The young man throws parts of their hair on the floor, and the main character remembers her family and claims that Louis didn't even spare her brother Alan. The brunette only claims with a smile that his little brother cried and begged him to spare him. The guy asks what else can be expected from an 11-year-old boy. The young lady finds it harder and harder to breathe, and the prince says that he has killed not only her family, but also all the maids who admired the young lady, the knights who swore allegiance to her. And the guy also got rid of his beloved nanny Maria. She screamed and fought to the end, saying that the girl was not guilty. And the woman's blind faith turned into a collapse for her, because she was fed alive to a hungry lion. Maria remembers her nanny smiling so warmly at her while the prince approaches her from behind, and he claims that he gathered all the people the young lady loved and then helped them go to heaven. The young man says that he loves Marie so much. The main character can no longer hold back her tears, but Louis continues to claim that the Darkcourt dynasty and the country of the young lady have come to an end. But the girl need not be sad, because the guy will take care of her lands after the young lady leaves. The brunette also points to the meter above his head and claims that even though he says these terrible things, the girl sees it, that he still loves her. The main character thinks that the guy took away her family and everything that was dear to her. She curses the prince and prays to God if he exists to hear her. The girl folds her hands and claims that she does not want to die. She doesn't want innocent people to suffer because of her. So the girl thinks that if she had another chance to save everyone. But suddenly her thoughts are interrupted by the sight of the grail, which began to glow. A little while later, the young lady tries to open her eyes, but at first everything is blurry in front of them. But a little while later, the young lady already sees her nanny, who asks if the mistress is okay. The woman says that Milady moaned so loudly in her sleep, but the main character interrupts her and jumps out of her bed. She asks if it is Ayah. The woman replies that it is, and Maria then asks to let her look at her. The young lady understands that Ayah died, but the girl does not understand how it all happened, because she is definitely not in Darukri now, and this is her room in the palace of the Kingdom of Link. The woman asks the young lady if something is wrong, and the main character only asks her nanny if she has arrived for the celebration in the Link Kingdom. Ayah replies that everything is correct, and the royal family is throwing a celebration to mark the kingdom's 120th birthday. Then the main character asks when the celebration will take place. The nanny, is everything really okay with Milady? Because the celebration will take place tomorrow. The young lady just hugs her nanny and thinks that she woke up on the day she arrived in the Link Kingdom. Ayah asks what happened to Milady, but Maria, with tears in her eyes, thanks God that her nanny is alive. She swears that she will protect the woman even if it costs her life. The nanny only asks what Milady is saying, since it is her job to protect and care for Maria, after which the nanny says that Milady must be completely tired from the trip, so she should rest before the celebration, because tomorrow will be an important day, and all 5 princes of the Link Empire will be present at this celebration. After which the nanny leaves, the main character remembered that in order to stop the war, Louis convinced her to come to the celebration, gather information about the 5 princes, and steal the Holy Grail for him. And right now, a carrier pigeon from the kingdom of Rutonia should come to her. After which, the girl sees a dove with a letter tied to its leg. The addressee wrote that he hoped the young lady had safely entered the kingdom of Link. He wrote to the young lady not to let anyone reveal her true intentions, and as soon as they had the Grail, they would have the wedding they had dreamed of so much. The addressee of this letter was Louis. The main character clutches the paper in her hands, and she understands that this scoundrel has fooled her. But even if the young lady returns to her homeland, it will not be easy for her to break off her engagement with Louis. So Maria says she needs a plan, but at that moment the nanny comes into the room and asks what the lady is talking about. The main character only turns to her and asks if Ayah has arrived, and also if the woman will help her style her hair. The nanny agrees and starts working, and Maria realizes that Louis proposed to her only because of her ability, which is that the girl can see people's sympathy. With this power, she must attract the 5 principals of the Link Kingdom to her side and put an end to the war. The silver-haired lady realizes that she will play the role of Louis's spy until the very day he ends his life with his own hands. As the young lady approaches the door, she claims that thanks to Ayah, she has become much better, so the young lady will go and take a little walk around the palace. When the main character goes outside, it seems to her that she really has returned to the past, because the situation in the castle is the same as that day. The silver-haired lady realizes that she needs to convince Louis that she is still on his side, and at the same time find an ally among the 5 princes of the Link Kingdom and conclude a peace treaty with them on behalf of the representative of the Darkori Kingdom. The girl understands that all she has to do is choose her key target and get it over with. But suddenly something distracts her attention, and it turns out to be the first prince of the Link Empire, His Highness Alexander. The main character remembers how exactly this prince caught her. He claimed with disgust on his face that the girl really was a spy. Now he disarms his opponent, after which the knight surrenders. And the blonde turns towards the main character. The young lady understands that she does not want to get involved with this psycho again, so she turns around and quickly leaves. The blonde man just silently watches her go. Maria understands that the Link Empire is the country that dominates the continent. This year marks the 120th anniversary of the Empire's birth, and ambassadors from all countries are gathering for this celebration for one purpose only: in order to marry at least one of the 5 princes of the powerful Link Empire. The first prince of the Link Empire is Alexander. The boy is the son of the Empire and is considered a master of military affairs. Even at a young age, he demonstrated outstanding abilities. The second prince of the Link Empire is Lester. The young man is calm and collected. There are also rumors that he is a sucker for beautiful women, but he is too flighty and has broken the hearts of many beauties from all over the continent. The third prince of the Link Empire is Lucas, an eccentric scientist who is obsessed with his research and is said to have made a breakthrough in the study of plants. The fourth prince of the Link Empire is Kai, who is said to be the Black Devil of the Empire and the master of the ball who has taken over the Western lands. Although despite his fearsome title, he has a very kind character. The fifth prince of the Link Empire is Elliot, a mysterious young man who has never appeared in public without a mask, and is also considered the strongest mage on the continent. The main character understands that they are all handsome and skilled, no matter who you look at. The girl wonders which prince would be the easiest target for her. She used to curse this ability, but now, with her help, the girl wants to change the future of her loved ones. At this time, the king announces that this is the end of their welcoming ceremony, and the young lady understands that she will definitely change her destiny. The main character is determined, and the king at this time tells the dear guests to follow the instructions out loud and not to rush to leave the ballroom. A little while later, the young lady returns to her room and announces this. She says that there will be a diplomatic ball in the evening, and she herself thinks that if people have reached 50% sympathy, then they are already favorably disposed towards her. The main character's family's sympathy towards her exceeds 60%, and in order to gain the trust of the interlocutor, his sympathy must be 40%. Friendly relations begin with above 50%, and in order to implement your form of life for one of the principles, the percentage of sympathy should be from 50 to 70%. The main character says that she will go, and the nanny wishes her to have a great time at the ball. The silver-haired lady says that she will make a tax and then thanks Ayah. Arriving at the ball, the main character realizes that the last time the second prince told her about the discovery of the Holy Grail, His Highness Lester. He was attracted by the beauty of the young lady and politeness, so the guy simply could not keep his mouth shut. But the silver-haired lady understands that choosing him as her target is not the best idea. After all, her frivolity will make it the hardest thing to achieve lasting sympathy. But suddenly, the main character hears a young man whispering to one of the ladies to leave the door to her chambers open tonight, and he will definitely come. The main character, hearing this, is a little surprised, but then she comes up with a good plan, after which the young lady heads towards the exit of the ballroom while he follows her with his eyes. That same second prince of the empire, that same evening the main character goes out onto the balcony. In her hands, she holds the sheet of paper that Lewis wrote. There she wrote that she hoped diplomatic relations would last until her return, and then asked what the situation was in Darkuria. The letter also stated that the girl had not yet found the Holy Grail and was trying to earn the trust of one of the 5 princes. The girl understands that Darkuria has made a friendly pact with Rutonia. Well, one wrong move on her part, and Darkuria will be doomed. But suddenly, someone screams from behind what the girl is doing there. It turns out to be His Highness the First Prince. The blonde says that this is the woman who was wandering around the palace today, and then asks what she was doing here. The main character understands that she needs to calm down, and she must not let the prince know her true intentions. But the young man only presses her against the wall and orders her to answer immediately. Mary, blushing a little, says that, to tell the truth, she wanted to meet His Majesty Lester here and give him her message. When the prince picks up the letter, he sees that it is indeed a love letter. Lady Elena claims that it is an ordinary love letter, and then apologizes and asks not to look at it like that. The girl realizes that the main message is written in invisible ink so that without light, he will not see anything. But suddenly the second prince comes up to them from behind and asks if they are discussing him. Alex claims that the girl behind him wanted to see Lester. And the second prince, after this, takes the letter and says that Alex so shamelessly took from this sweet lady the letter that was intended for him. The main character understands that this love letter was a simple distraction, and she never expected to meet the second prince, much less talk to him. The silver-haired boy simply apologizes for keeping her waiting, and the blonde asks if Lester really talked to her. The second prince says that yes, the young lady is so sweet that it is impossible not to lay eyes on her. Then Alex says that everything is clear and his brother is again looking for a toy for the night. And Lester replies that his relationship does not concern his older brother, so he suggests leaving them alone. The blonde says that the young man should do as he pleases and then leaves. Maria understands that she managed to escape from Alexander's clutches, but Lester's sympathy is now -2. The silver-haired boy asks if the letter was really meant for him. The girl just smiles and says that she is glad to meet His Highness Lester in person and everything written in the letter is the pure truth. But the young man says that her letter does not include his name and the letter could have been intended for anyone. The main character says with a smile on her face that she seems to have been so worried that she forgot to sign the letter, and she thinks that the guy easily noticed this. The young man, holding the letter in his hands, asks if the girl claims that she fell in love with him at first sight. The young lady replies that everything is correct, and as soon as she saw the guy at the welcoming ceremony, she could not look away. And Lester then asks why the young lady doesn't seal her confession with a kiss. Maria is a little frightened by this and asks what His Highness is talking about. But the guy just grabs her hand and pulls her closer to him, after which he offers to do it for her. At this time, the first prince approaches the entrance to the building, and leading one of the cats asks if he is the 5th prince. Alex needs anything. And the blonde orders him to keep a close eye on Lester and also check another guest. The guy asks who he should find out about. The prince replies that he needs to find out about the princess of the Darkuri Kingdom, because she intended to meet under cover of night in Lester's chambers, but his room is on the 3rd floor. The prince found this suspicious and wanted to question the young lady, but Lester intervened. The first prince says that every year on the Empire's birthday, rats sneak in, that they are eager to steal their national treasure, the Holy Grail, and their task is to stop any suspicious individuals who would covet it. The 5th prince says that he understands, and the blonde man says that if he finds out anything, he should report it to him immediately. After which, the red-haired youth disappears. Alex thinks that as far as he knows, Princess Darkuri is in a relationship with the Prince of the Kingdom of Rutonia. Rutonia is helping the Kingdom of Darkuria in every possible way in their precarious situation, and this woman dares to have affairs on the side by betraying her benefactor. The young man turns around and says that something is clearly wrong there. At this time, the main character is still with Prince Lester. The girl understands that the prince is clearly playing with her and she does not intend to give in to him. The young man, touching the bruise on his face, says that the girl turned out to be more interesting than he thought. The silver-haired lady says that she simply won't tolerate being played with like other girls. The boy asks if she wants special treatment and then grabs the girl's hand. He presses her against the wall and tells her to then answer what she forgot there, and how she intended to include this message to him if she wanted to meet him in the chambers. The main character realizes that she managed to read his lips that he intended to meet someone else tonight and wanted to create an alibi for herself on this basis, but everything did not go according to plan, so she says that she did not think about running into him there. The prince still holds her hand and says that the young lady still has not answered his question, because his room is in another part of the palace. But the lady with silver hair points to one of the windows and says that it is true because she wanted to visit the prince's chamber and deliver a message, but she was afraid that she would not find him there, so she came there. After all, from this balcony there is a view of the window from his bedroom, and if there was hair in the bedroom and the prince, the light came on, that she immediately went to him. The guy says that it sounds like a perfect lie, then asks what would have happened if he had been in the bedroom with a girl instead of alone. And the main character, with a smile on her face, says that then she would be very unlucky. But the young man only presses her harder against the wall, and now he suggests talking seriously. He moves closer and closer to her ear, and he claims that he is not a fool, and also understands that the young lady needs something from him, and he is ready to help her in exchange for cooperation. The silver-haired lady asks if he is talking about collaborating with her, and the guy just smiles in response. The next day, the fifth prince already approaches Alex with information. The blonde, looking at the documents, asks if the fifth prince is sure that Princess Darkuri, Maria de Darkuri, is engaged to the prince of the kingdom of Rutonia. Louis, the magician, says yes, and there is no doubt about it, and Alex smirks in response. He claims that the young lady has a fiancé, and at the same time she is making eyes at Lester, after which the blonde screams for the girl to be brought there immediately. He understands that depending on her answers, he will decide whether the girl will live or not. A little while later, looking at the mask worn by the fifth prince, Alex asks if it is an invisibility mask. The guy climbs out of the painting, claiming that everything is correct and that this is one of their national treasures. Their empire thrives through communication with other countries and the exchange of technologies. Therefore, peace for their empire is a top priority. Alex agrees with the other prince, but he says that not everyone wants peace as much as they do, and his task is to get rid of such people. At the same moment the guy hears someone knocking on the door, he tells the girl to come in, after which, sitting at his chair, he claims that last night the young lady told him that she wanted to give Lester a love letter. The silver-haired lady thinks that the prince doesn't trust her enough to call for a face-to-face conversation, so she says that it's true. But the young man then points to one of the documents and says that the princess is, in fact, engaged to the prince of the kingdom of Rutonia, His Highness Louis, after which the blonde asks if he is right. The main character realizes that her engagement to Louis was never officially made public, and the prince managed to get such information in such a short period of time, so now the girl is trying to somehow justify herself. But the guy only claims that being 1 foot in marriage, the young lady dared to make eyes at the second prince of the Link Empire. And for such boorish behavior, he is thinking about introducing sanctions against Queen Darkuri. The blonde understands that if this girl is planning to seduce Lester on the orders of Prince Rutonia, then he must stop her attempt here and now. So he grabs the princess by the hand and asks if she has anything to say. And the main character, looking at him, doesn't even know what to say. But suddenly Lester comes up to them and asks how Alex dares to treat his lady so rudely. And then he tells the first prince to let her go right now. The girl doesn't understand 100 what the guy is doing there. Alex tells the second prince not to interfere with him while he does his job, and Lester asks what this job consists of, after which the blonde claims that this woman is suspected of espionage and she could take advantage of Lester's feelings, and also exchange information with her fiancé, but the guy with silver hair only laughs in response. He says that his brother is right to assure that even though his beloved is engaged to another, this does not interfere with their love. Maria only thinks about what kind of love he is talking about. Alexander asks his brother if he even understands what he is saying now, but the young man says that their family never knows how to share among themselves, but he will not tolerate such rude treatment of his lady. The girl understands that the conversation is somehow going on by itself, and it is better for her not to interfere for now. But Alex says that the girl is being interrogated right now, after which he grabs her hand again, and he says that this time he won't let his brother take her away from him. The silver-haired lady only screams in response to this. How dare he? And His Highness asks if she is some kind of thing that can simply be taken away, after which she slips out of the boy's grip and leaves with Lester. Alex only shouts for her not to go anywhere, but suddenly a young man with red hair appears behind him and says that his brother should calm down. After all, if he chases after them, it will attract unnecessary attention that they don't need. Alex says that he understands and then orders the red-haired boy to continue spying on them. The guy bows before the first prince and then leaves. At this time, the main character is still walking with Lester. She understands that she was almost exposed, but the problem now is different. Now Lester can be suspected of espionage. The silver-haired boy asks if she is thinking about espionage, because if so, then they should discuss the details of their cooperation as soon as possible. The girl remembers how the previous night the guy said that one of his brothers could be listening to them, so he suggested talking in his room. A little while later, they are already in Lester's guest house. The young man claims that no one will disturb them there, and after they enter the room, the guy sits Maria on the bed. The girl screams, "What is he doing?" And the second prince says that you shouldn't underestimate his older brother, because he's like a mad dog. Because if he sees weakness, he'll grab you and won't let go until the very end. The silver-haired lady says that she hasn't done anything wrong, but in her thoughts she adds that she hasn't done anything wrong yet. But the young man throws her on the bed and asks how he knows. But then he claims that he doesn't care whether the girl is a spy or not, and he just needs a smart ally. The silver-haired lady asks what His Highness is planning, and if he does not treat her as an equal, she will not be able to help. Lester claims he thought women liked being unequal to men, but the young lady quickly lays him on his back and says that she is not like everyone else. The guy is a little surprised by this, and the girl at the same moment thinks that maybe she did it in vain. After all, her sympathy level is not high enough to contradict him, but the young man only laughs in response to this. He says with a smile on his face that the young lady is really amazing, and his sympathy level changes to 6. The main character asks how she can help His Highness, and the young man claims that there is a ball this week, and he wants the young lady to go with him. The main character asks if this is all, and the young man takes her hair in his hands and says that at this ball he wants to introduce her as his bride. The silver-haired lady asks why His Highness needs this. She understands that if in return he concludes a peace pact with Darkori, then the girl agrees to everything. But she extends her hand and asks His Highness why he wants this, and also asks if he would like to tell her the reason for his desire. The young lady swears on her family's behalf that she will not tell his story to anyone. After that, the young man sits at the table and tells that in fact, a long time ago, he was already in love, but this girl died because of him. Once upon a time, the young man and his friends went hunting. It was a pretty normal event. Well, when they were returning to the palace, they were attacked by mercenaries from another kingdom. During the fight, the guy fell off a cliff and lost consciousness, but the prince was much luckier than his friends. The young man began to throw off his cape and then his shirt. The main character asks why he suddenly started to undress during their conversation, and the young man claims that every time he tells this story, no one believes him. Well, there is irrefutable evidence of that attack on his body. Maria thinks that she understands everything, but because of his playful nature, the girl cannot calmly accept such actions. She claims that she will burn the prince and asks him to stop. But then he sees these horrible scars on his back. The guy claims that he could have died that fateful day if it weren't for a girl named Sherry who nursed him back to health. Sherry's house had a small table where her entire family of 8 would dine. The protagonist asks if that counted, including him. The boy answers that it is true, and it was the first time he ate at a table where the whole family gathered. Despite all the inconveniences, this moment was clearly imprinted in his memory. Maria asks if the young man stopped visiting her even after his recovery. The second prince only nods in response. He remembers those days. Then the young man said that the girl's house was, as always, very cozy, and Sherry replied that it must be cramped and noisy compared to the royal palace. Lester, you said that he was only glad about this, because he was already tired of his arrogant brothers and indifferent father. At this time, one of the boys handed him his drawing and asked Mr. Lester to look at it. The young man asked if the boy had really drawn it, and then he turned to Sherry, suggested going for a walk with Toby and Molly while she was preparing dinner. The girl replied that it was so impolite of her to burden the prince with her brothers and sisters. Lester replied that he was having fun spending time with them and that he wanted to help out a little. Sherry on the housework. The young man pinched his leg to keep from blushing too much, and the girl told him that she agreed to this, but let the children not forget to thank His Highness. Lester asked why so formally, and the girl answered that they should know their prince by sight and also know his name. Lester then told the young lady that she did not have to address him by his title, but only by his first name. Sherry only smiled in response and said that the prince was too kind to her. The young man then said that the day of remembrance would soon pass, and his father wants to throw a big celebration in the capital in honor of this, so he asked the young lady if she wanted to go to this celebration with him, because he still hadn't repaid Sherry for everything she did for him. The blonde, with a sincere smile on her face, said that if His Highness insisted, then she could not refuse. However, on the day of their meeting, when Lester approached her house and saw a terrible picture, because the young lady was lying lifeless on the floor, His Highness was in complete shock, and Maria is now asking who dared to kill the girl. Lester replies that the only one capable of such atrocity is the niece of the king of the empire. Link, Carla. The main character, looking at the young man, understands that she has heard that this girl has been nominated for the role of the bride more than once, Lester. But the main character does not understand why the girl did this and how she could do something like this, so she asks His Highness about it. The young man tells how the girl approached him and said that the day of remembrance would soon pass, so she suggested going to the celebration together. But His Highness apologized and claimed that he had already promised one person to go to the celebration together, so the girl could go with someone else. Carla seemed to go crazy from this. She thought who it could be, and what kind of creature dared to spend time with her beloved. The girl fiercely claimed that Lester belongs to her alone and she will not forgive this creature. Carla decided that she had to teach her a lesson. Now His Highness says that it was ordinary jealousy, and the main character is shocked by this and thinks how someone's life can be cut short so calmly because of this. The guy claims that he doesn't know why Carla is obsessed with him, but after that incident, she didn't leave him alone for a day. Maria asks if the king didn't react in any way to her strange behavior. Lester claims that his father didn't care and that Carla left lipstick marks on his clothes, stole his things, and that Tech was convinced that they would definitely get married in the future. The main character thinks how creepy this is, and the guy says that Carla is his father's favorite niece, and he also has an amazing relationship with Carla's father. That is, his uncle. Lester. Because of this, no one thinks that he could have a marriage with someone other than Carla. Then the main character asks if the guy needs her to break off his engagement with Lady Carla, and the young man replies that this is true, but it is very risky to do something like this, knowing her jealous nature. Every time he proposed this plan to his lovers, they all refused. The girls said that all their empires knew that they should not cross Lady Carla's path, and the main character now says that she agrees. The young man is a little shocked by this. Yeah. The main character says that she knows how scary it is to be with a person who is literally obsessed, so she will help. Maria understands that this crazy woman took away from Lester the love of his life, and she too could find herself in a similar situation. The young lady understands that Lester was not playing with women's feelings, but was looking for an ally. Looking at the guy, she sees that the number on the counter has reached 14. Maria. To think that his sympathy percentage jumped so high in one go. And the girl wonders if she has really chosen the right ally. And Lester at this time asks if she understands that there will be no love waiting for her in this marriage. And he just wants to free himself from Carla's shackles, so he asks if it's okay with the young lady. Maria says she understands, but she has a condition, because the guy will have to make a friendly pact with the Dark Ori Empire, because she also has those she wants to protect. The young man agrees and says that this sounds very fair, so if the ball goes well, he will immediately submit a document on the fellowship. The silver-haired lady extends her hand to him and says it's a deal, after which they shake hands and make a deal. The guy says that after the engagement is announced, the thief will try to get rid of Maria in every possible way, so they have to act very carefully, and the young lady should not leave him even for a step. The main character asks if the girl will really do something like that. The second prince is silent for a while, lost in thought, and then turns to Marie. The girl wonders if he really remembered her name, and the young man lifts her up in his arms and asks if the girl has really decided to agree to the marriage without fearing for herself. The silver-haired lady puts her finger to his lips and says that it is a good joke. However, it will be worse for Carla if she tries to encroach on her life. After all, the girl is a princess of a small country, and if someone dares to harm her, a military conflict will break out, which the Link Empire definitely does not need. Therefore, it would be short-sighted to put her into eternal sleep knowing about her origin. The girl thinks that all she needs to do is bring Carla and herself out, and then they can bring her to justice. So the silver-haired lady turns to His Highness and says that if you think about it that way, then she has an idea. but it will require a new dress and jewelry. The second prince asks if she wants a dress, and the main character thinks that the niece of the king of the Link Empire, Carla, is a beautiful but very hot-tempered lady, and they can get rid of her by pressing on weak points, so Maria discusses a plan with the young man. Lester says he understands and the ball is in a week, so he will have time to prepare everything. Until then, he asks the young lady not to leave the grounds of his guest house. Maria asks why, and the young man tells her not to forget that Alex still suspects her, and if she leaves this house, he will try to detain her again. The silver-haired lady says he's right, because Alexander won't calm down until he exposes her. But Lester tells the girl not to worry because he won't let his brother set foot there. The young man kisses the girl's hand and claims that if Maria wants to go for a walk, he will gladly keep her company, after which he leaves. The main character, a little while later, sits at the table and writes another sheet. In it, she indicates that the matter has moved from dead center, and in order to fulfill her plan, she agreed to a false engagement with His Highness Lester. The girl understands that everything is fine, but she should be honest with Lewis until the pact with Darkuri is officially concluded. After all, the guy would have found out about the engagement anyway, so any unnecessary concealment would have led to unnecessary suspicions. The main character holds a dove and gives him a leaf. She points her finger at his head and claims that the dove knows what to do. But suddenly someone appears near the young lady. The main character wonders who it is, and the guy, dispelling his magic, says that the girl has finally come to light. It turns out to be His Highness Alexander. The silver-haired lady understands that if he saw her sending the letter, then it is very bad. So the girl asks if His Highness would like to speak to her. The first prince states that he knows about the young lady's engagement to another. So enough of this show. The main character understands that the dove is still here, so she also falls on the first prince. And she says that she is very tired. The girl apologizes to His Highness and claims that she has simply suffered from anemia since birth, and she is often overcome by attacks of fatigue. The girl herself thinks that the dove would fly away already, and the guy says that this pigeon has something tied to its leg. Then the young lady realizes that the pigeon is still there, so she sues the prince again, and this time she knocks him to the floor. The young man understands that this girl is doing her best to distract him, and this only confirms his guess that the girl is a spy. So he takes the belt off his cloak and ties the young lady's hands with it. The dove gets scared by this sudden movement and flies away, and the main character thinks that, thank God, the dove flew away. His Highness only turns to Elliot and tells him to get them out of there quickly, after which the main character is already in His Highness's office, and the guy claims that now they will be able to talk without his annoying younger brother. The silver-haired lady realizes that she has been teleported back to Alexander's office. She claims to be the princess of the Darkuri kingdom and asks how the prince dares to keep her in this office by force. And she herself understands that now she cannot avoid talking to him. The blonde says that if she is innocent, he will let her go quickly, so the young lady has nothing to worry about. And the girl understands that if she lets down her guard even for a second and is accused again, then execution cannot be avoided. So the girl understands that there must be a way to get out of there, and then an idea comes to her. The young lady asks if His Highness wanted to be alone with her because he has tender feelings for her. The guy definitely didn't expect this, so he immediately blushed and cried out, asking why the girl did this. And the lady with silver hair thinks he gets angry quite easily. Therefore, Maria continues this performance and says that for the first time, a young man ties her up against her will and drags her to his office, so this gives rise to some thoughts. The blonde screams that everything is wrong and he tied up the young lady because she was in his way. But Maria only says what will people think if they find out that the first prince drags lovely ladies into his office against their will. The girl understands that she will press until he gives in and personally escorts her out of the office. The young man turns to the fifth prince, but he only looks away. The boy cries out to the young lady so that she does not misunderstand him. After all, he simply had no other choice. But the main character, when he approaches, understands that this is her chance. So the girl kicks his foot, causing the prince to stagger and fall on her. And at that very moment, Alexander is already pressing her to the chair. The lady with silver hair says how pushy His Highness is, and she asks if he really wanted to possess her so much that he literally stole her. And now he's doing this. The young man immediately pulls away and asks what kind of nonsense this is, and the main character understands that in a little while he will explode from embarrassment and he will have no choice but to let her go. So Maria, with a smile on her face, says that let me call her a suspect in espionage because if His Highness just wanted her attention. It was enough to just chat. And then the lady with silver hair sits him down on a chair. The blonde screams what she is doing. The young lady asks if he didn't want to talk to her alone. The first prince looks at Elliot in shock and sees that he is about to use teleportation magic, so Alexander screams for him not to leave. But the main character only turns his face back to hers and asks if His Highness wishes for their love to have an audience. But the young man only pushes the girl back and screams for her to leave, and then turns to Elliot and tells him to send the young lady back right now. Silver-haired Lollipops thinks how simple it is with the first principle. The girl asks what about her hands, and then the guy unties them. And the main character thinks that there is one final touch left, after which she approaches His Highness and says that she will be for him either a spy or an ordinary princess, but to offer next time just to chat without his depraved games. The shocked young man asks what she just said, but the girl has already teleported away. The fifth prince says that his brother should not misunderstand him, but if he has such a fetish that he is not going to judge. The blonde screams that it is a misunderstanding and the girl was just in his way, so he had to tie her up and there was no lewd undertone to it. But the guy with the red hair asks, "What does interfered mean? After all, how could some lady interfere with the military strategist and first general of the Link Empire?" The guy then becomes depressed, and the fifth prince says that he thinks he should leave his brother alone. The blonde asks why, but when he looks into the mirror that his brother just created, he understands everything. And Elliot says that his brother is so red that he thinks that the prince should cool down a little before they continue working. The fifth prince thinks that this is the first time he has seen his brother taken by surprise by a woman. After all, the older brother always had a strict and even slightly aggressive disposition, so he had absolutely no relationships with the opposite sex. But there has never been a time when a lady has embarrassed him so much, so Elliot thinks that Lady Darkuri is not as simple as he thought. The young man tells his brother that they still missed Princess Darkuri, so he asks if he should bring her again. But the first prince says no and suggests watching her. He understands that if he is left alone with her again, then various rumors will start. And that is all he needs. The fifth prince says that he obeys, but he himself understands that his brother is not yet ready to talk to her and wonders whether the girl really impressed him so much. The blonde says that he still has urgent matters to attend to and that in his absence, Elliot should continue to watch her. The guy turns to the mirror and thinks that he is interested, because what if they are left alone again? Whether Princess Darkuri will be able to get closer to his brother, and he can only watch this story from the sidelines. The silver-haired lady teleports to the second prince's guest house. The girl thinks that thank God she managed to get out this time. But then Lester turns to her and says that he wanted to discuss something about their plan. But suddenly the guy saw marks on the young lady's wrists and screamed what had happened to her. The main character is wondering whether she should tell him that his older brother treated him so disrespectfully by literally invading his house. Lester asks if the young lady was forbidden to tell him what happened. Maria asks what he is talking about and says, of course not. Then the young man takes her hand in his and tells her to share it with him. Because if she does not tell him, the prince will not be able to ensure her safety even within the walls of his house. A little while later, the main character realizes that she said that she was kidnapped, but did not specify that it was Alexander. The young man says that he understood, and then today the girl will sleep with him. The main character screams in shock. What is he talking about? She knows she expected any reaction, but not this one. So she asks why they would do this. The guy says that he has a fairly large bed so they can easily fit on it. And the lady with silver hair says that she is not talking about that, and she is not going to share a bed with a man. Then the guy turns to Marie and says that most likely his younger brother Eli kidnapped her. After all, he is in cahoots with Alexander and can do it again. The main character thinks that the young man must be talking about His Highness Elliot. After all, he is the most powerful magician on the continent and is truly capable of kidnapping anyone without leaving a trace behind. And Lester says that if he is around, he promises that he will be able to protect the young lady, and he certainly does not intend to molest the lady without her express consent. But that same night, the girl realizes that at least the young man did say it. But in the end, she found herself in this situation. The main character is trying wake up His Highness and tell him that he is allowing himself too much. But the boy only screams in his sleep and begs someone not to leave. Silver-haired Shoulders realizes that he is most likely having a nightmare, and the guy says not to leave him. The main character understands that most likely he is still tormented by a feeling of guilt because he could not protect the only dear person. The girl thinks that she really feels sorry that he had to go through this nightmare all alone. But the young man only asks in his sleep where Ben went. Maria does not understand who he is talking about. She thought that His Highness was dreaming of his deceased beloved, But Lester just approaches the young lady and says how delicious he smells, after which he kisses her neck. The silver-haired lady is shocked and immediately pushes him away. She screams that enough of this and tells the guy to wake up quickly. The young man only wakes up and asks Marie what is going on, and the girl, pointing to her neck, says that His Highness is too clingy. The boy, realizing what he just did, apologizes and claims that he dreamed that he was hugging a large dog named Ben. He lived in Sherry's house. The main character realizes that the prince has confused her with a dog. The next day, the young lady is already heading to the ball. One of the maids reports that His Highness Lester asked the girl to wait there. But suddenly, the main character hears someone's voice asking if she is another doormat. It turns out to be Carla. She thinks what kind of simpleton she is and understands that Lester has always been partial to such uncouth fools. The girl thinks, "What kind of awful dress is this? Because it looks extremely cheap and is completely unsuitable for today's celebration." The lady with silver hair thinks that Carla is dead. The girl approaches the main character and asks what kind of stone it is. After all, it is so cloudy and looks more like a piece of coal than a jewel worth wearing around your neck. Maria says that this is a gift from His Highness Lester, after which she asks if the girl has heard of Volnite before. Carla understands that this is a rare gemstone that is mined from the scales of fossilized monsters. And such stones are not just rare, but only a few have them. The lady with silver hair claims that the peculiarity of this stone is that it changes color when heated. Carla says that she already knew this, and His Highness Lester is too kind to commoners like her. But the girl claims that she wants to be honest with the young lady, and the prince is just playing with the girl's feelings. After all, he will never take their relationship seriously, no matter what frogs he gives. Carla also says that she is quite famous in social circles and can find the young lady another betrothed, whom she is just starting to visit. After all, I can't let her go empty-handed and with a broken heart, because I already feel sorry for the young lady. But suddenly, Lester comes up to Maria from behind and asks why the young lady needs this, since she already has him. The girl with pink hair is shocked by this, and the main character thinks what the prince is doing. But then he realizes that he lifted her hair and thinks that she deliberately hid this hickey with her hair. Lester merely apologizes for keeping them waiting, and Maria asks what His Highness is doing. The guy kisses her hand and says that he just still can't forget how magical their last night was. The girl understands that yes, but only in his dreams he kissed me a beautiful lady and a dog named Ben, after which they leave. The second prince says that they managed to touch her, and the main character says that it was all thanks to his favorite dog. The young man only smiles in response, while Carla cannot come to her senses. She unfolds her fan. At this time, the main character and Mr. Lester are walking down the corridor, but then the young lady notices the first prince. The guy immediately blushes after remembering what happened. The lady with silver hair thinks why he is blushing, but the girl herself is all red. She thinks that she had to behave so depravedly in her pride. Lester asks what happened to Alex, and the main character tells His Highness that it is not so important and suggests moving on. The fifth prince thinks what a curious reaction this is. At this time in the ballroom, Carl is talking with two aristocrats. One of them asks if Milady Carla came alone today. The girl replies that, unfortunately, yes. She had planned to spend the evening with His Highness Lester, but he was already with another. The young man standing next to the lady with pink hair says that he thinks about the summer did not know about the relationship between Carla and His Highness Lester, but His Highness is so kind and can never refuse a lady's request. Then one of these aristocrats says that since this is so, he asks Lady Carla to allow him to invite her to dance. The girl says that she is pleased with the young man's attention, but her heart belongs only to His Highness Lester. The guy asks, confused, how could His Highness trade the young lady for some stranger after all the feelings she has for him? After which he claims that the girl should forgive him, but he can't just leave it that way. Carla thinks how cute it is, because such little fires are very easy to manipulate. The guy runs up to the main character from behind and screams, wondering if she even knows what she's doing. The young man claims that this man has loved ones, and the girl dares to seduce him. But he grabs the young lady's dress and tears it. The main character is shocked by this, and the young man understands what he just did. Lester turns to him and asks how he dares to treat his companion like some kind of plebeian. Then the lady with pink hair comes to them and says, what a poor Lady Marie. She thinks that she will also protect in her toy from shame, like him. The girl says that it seems that this young gentleman was overwhelmed with feelings after talking to her, after which Carla bows and asks to forgive him this time because it is her fault. The first principal heals and understands that this is another game. And the main character, looking at the girl, understands that as soon as she was left alone with her, only barbs flowed from her mouth. But when she finds herself in the company of men, she turns into an angel. And this seems disgusting to the young lady. Carla says that she will see to it that a new dress is brought to the girl, after which she tells the servants to prepare the best dress she has and escort this lithium to her room. Maria wonders if the girl wants her to run away with her tail between her legs, but she's not going to do that. So the silver-haired lady tells Lady Carla not to bother herself. The girl with pink hair does not understand what her interlocutor is talking about, and the main character thinks that everyone is watching their fight. So this is her chance. The young lady looks at Lester and says that she doesn't want to ruin the evening with such a minor thing as a torn dress. The second prince then tells the young lady to allow him to ask her to dance. And when they begin to dance, the young man asks if the girl is sure of her decision. After all, such an act could be considered rudeness to the royal family. The new main character says that she is sure that this act will make them all shut their mouths. The girl understands that this slight awkwardness is worth her plans, so she tells His Highness not to worry about her. Lester merely kisses her on the forehead and offers to show them all Marie's true beauty. The silver-haired lady realizes that he too is apparently eager to put Lady Carla in her place. The young man then unties the bow on the young lady's dress, and the simple dress immediately turns into luxurious clothing. Everyone around says how elegant and how beautiful this dress is. They also claim that the lady who came with His Highness Lester is so charming and she attracts attention so easily. The second prince smiles at the young lady, and the main character smiles back at him. People continue to gossip and say that it seems that the rumors are true, and the first of the 5 princes to marry will be His Highness Lester. After all, this lady he brought to the ball will most likely be his bride. Carla thinks that she will never tolerate this farce. The girl thinks she saved this stupid boar, and he still looks at this litter with such frostbite. The main character only bows after the dance. She understands that she initially demanded His Highness to design a dress that would look very simple on the outside, but hide a real masterpiece on the inside. The guy approaches Marie and thanks her for the dance. The girl sees that the affection meter is already showing 16 units, and the young man kisses her ear. The lady with silver hair with a smile on her face thinks that, to tell the truth, she absolutely does not know how to dance, and it is surprising that she did not step on all his feet. The guy says that everyone was so worried about the torn dress, but now everything is fine and none of it matters. The second prince says that it is true because now everyone will see it, and after that he points to the puck at the young lady. The main character is shocked by this and blushes a little. Meanwhile, Carla can't believe that a country bumpkin like her could attract so much attention. She approaches the young lady and tells her what an interesting trick she showed them with her dress. When the main character looks at the girl's affection meter, she sees -20. Maria thinks that it seems their trick angered the girl even more than she thought, after which she claims that it was His Highness's idea. Carla says that she is so close to His Highness Lester, and that is why she wants to be friends with Milady too. After which the girl asks if the young lady would like to share a glass of wine with her, and she herself thinks that she will personally take care of the immersion of this lousy bedding into eternal sleep. The main character thinks that she finally succeeded. She claims that Lady Clara is so kind to her and asks how she can refuse the girl such an offer. But she herself thinks that it was Carla who fell into her trap. While the young lady was dancing, Alexander was watching her, and he said how beautiful it was, adding in his thoughts that he didn't know that in their empire they sewed such beautiful dresses. The 5th prince wonders if his brother has fallen for the charms of the one he suspected, so he asks his brother if he really liked her that much. The blonde replies that he would like to admire it as long as possible. People whisper among themselves, asking what kind of skilled tailor made this dress, and another girl claims that she wants the same one. The first prince understands that everyone at the ball is simply delighted with this dress and is curious where the girl got it, because if he finds out the details, they can make good money on it. So he turns to Elliot and claims that he has urgent business to attend to and can continue surveillance without him. The 5th prince agrees. He thinks that all his life he was used by a sect of magicians and their bloodthirsty rituals, and at one moment he could say goodbye to his life. If it weren't for His Highness Alexander, he would have given the boy a family and shelter. So the young man is obliged to carry out his will unquestioningly. A little while later, the main character was already sitting at the same table with Carla and Lester. The girl claimed that there were only 1,000 bottles of this wine left, and she assured that the young lady would like it. After which, she told the servant to pour her guests some wine. The main character understands that from this label, it is clear that this wine is from Darkuri. The young lady's hands are shaking from the tension, so she understands that she needs to calm down. At this time, Carla says that as far as she knows, His Highness Lester prefers wine from the Link Empire. Therefore, she says that if the young man wants, she can ask her to pour it for him. The guy takes his hand back and asks if, in her opinion, he is unworthy of drinking the rare wine. But the lady with pink hair asks him what he is talking about, because she is simply sure that the prince will not like it that much. And she will drink a glass of wine from the Link Empire with him for company. The main character understands that they are not drinking the same wine that is poured into her glass. After all, although her wine does not smell of anything suspicious, there is no doubt that it is poisoned. Carl's wife says that she hopes the young lady will enjoy such a rare alcohol, which she opened especially for her. And she herself thinks that this wine contains a special slow-acting poison, and it will gradually dry out the girl's body from the inside. And in a couple of days, the young lady will turn into a skinny mummy. Every day will be like hell for her. Carla says what a wonderful aroma comes from the wine. She thinks that you should make sure that a huge mirror is installed in the young lady's chambers, and she watched with her own eyes as her beauty withered before her eyes. Carla thinks that only a few moments separate her from this unimaginable sight. The main character says that it is not easy to get such an exclusive wine from Darkuri, and the girl must have paid a considerable amount for it. Maria understands that she does not know what kind of poison it is. But even if she takes a small sip, it can instantly plunge her into a crippling sleep. But she says that she still thinks it would be impolite to open such a rare bottle of wine without treating His Highness Lester to some. The girl with pink hair says that it is customary for their empire to give the best to their guests. So the young lady need not worry because His Highness will not be offended by such behavior. The main character understands that the girl does not want Lester to drink this wine with all her might, and thinks that the answer is that he drinks it. And then, when the wine wears off, she takes the young lady by surprise. Carla can't wait for the girl to take a sip, but suddenly someone takes the glass from the young lady. It turns out to be Lester. He tells Marie that this is wine from her homeland, and the girl must have often drunk it in the company of her family. So he tells the young lady to let him have some of this wine. Carla is shocked by this because she certainly did not expect this. The silver-haired lady screams for His Highness to wait. She understands that he definitely cannot drink it. But suddenly, the girl with pink hair snatches the glass from Lester's hands, but the wine spills on his clothes. The guy smiles and says that it is so impudent to jump up and take his glass of wine away from him. The girl tries to justify herself, but Lester only tells her to pour him a new glass of wine, and Carla says that he can't. The prince asks why and if there is another reason why he should not drink this particular wine. The lady with her pink hair says that of course not, and what's more important is that he got his tailcoat dirty. Therefore, the young lady orders the servant to bring His Highness a new suit at once. Well, the prince just takes the main character by the hand and invites her to go, after which they leave the girl with pink hair alone. Carla is apparently furious about this. At this time, the maid brings His Highness a change of clothes. She says that if they need anything, he should not hesitate to call. Maria tells her to wait, because the maid must help wash His Highness's body. Lester says there is no need, because he does not allow the servant to help him with dressing or washing, because he does not want to frighten them with his appearance. The silver-haired lady understands that he is of royal blood and it is normal to receive due treatment no matter what he looks like. So the young lady helps him. The prince says that she should not touch his skin, because if there really was poison in the wine, she could get hurt too. But the girl tells him not to worry, because she thinks this poison cannot damage the skin. Otherwise, Lady Carla would not have allowed the wine to spill. The prince says that Marie is very attentive, but the girl only asks why he stopped her. After all, if the wine was sent, then he had material evidence of her guilt. And the guy says that this is wine from Marie's homeland and asks why she thinks Carla poisoned this particular wine. The main character understands that he is hinting that the wine could have been poisoned initially, and Carla took advantage of this to shift all the blame onto her kingdom. Maria says that wine is one of the main economic sectors in her kingdom, and the girl, blushing a little, says that he not only saved her life, but also preserved the honor of her homeland. So she thanks His Highness. The guy says that they are allies and are obliged to help each other, but he is concerned about another issue and asks what is going on between the young lady and Alex. After all, as soon as they both met eyes at the ball, they both became embarrassed. The girl remembers how she behaved with His Highness, and this makes her blush even more. She claims that they definitely have nothing in common. The young lady understands that she can't say that she had to flirt with Alexander to escape from the interrogation, but the young man only leans towards her and asks if Marie is again not telling him something. The girl is embarrassed and suggests talking about this another time. She understands that she is ashamed even to remember this conversation. But suddenly there is a knock at the door. Lester says he will open it and suggests the young lady to wait there. However, when the guy opens the door, he asks who is there and sees his younger brother. He asks if it is Eli, and the young man says that, as he thought, Lady Darkuri is with Lester. The second prince says he's not in the mood to chat with Eli, but the young man just snaps his fingers and a feather appears in his hands. He says he just has a couple of questions for his lovely companion regarding this feast. The main character is shocked to realize that this is the feather of that dove, and they realize that the girl uses doves to communicate with Lewis. The fifth prince now asks the princess if she would spare him a couple of minutes of her time. Lester stands in front of the silver-haired lady and asks what Eli wants from her. The red-haired boy says that he swears that he doesn't intend to harm her, but the boy says that's not an answer and asks his brother again what he wants. But he only replies that the princess apparently knows what he wants to ask her. The main character then agrees and says that she will go with him. The second prince does not understand why she does this. And the girl says that he himself said that he does not intend to harm her, so she will return soon. After this, the guy with red hair tells the princess to follow him and they leave Lester alone. After that, they go into one of the rooms and Elliot, using his magic, illuminates it. The main character realizes that with one snap of his fingers, he illuminated the entire room with magic. So she claims that what they say is true about him being the best magician on the entire continent. The young man simply asks the princess if she doesn't like magic, and the girl replies that she doesn't really. She thinks that, unfortunately, she was born with her gift because at one time she was so fixated on this sympathy, trying to please everyone around her. But now she claims that magic can be both good and bad, and it all depends on who controls it. The main character notices that the young man is staring at her and is looking at him questioningly, and he, realizing that he was staring at the lady, suggests getting down to business. After which, a magic ball appears in his hands, and the young man claims that the other day, this dove flew out of the second prince's guest house. The main character says that she simply sent a letter to Prince Louis because their countries have been friends for many years. The young man asks if that is all. And after that, the girl answers yes, but the guy asks if she would mind if they found out the content of this message. The silver-haired lady thinks that if His Highness Alexander finds out what they have planned for Louis's son, then she will inevitably face death again. But the guy claims that he can forget about this dove if the girl fulfills one of his requests. The silver-haired lady asks him what he is talking about, and a rose appears in the young man's hands. He invites the young lady to go and admire the rose garden together. Maria is shocked and wonders if she misheard. She asks again where the young man wants to go, and he claims that he wants to go to the rose garden because the flowering season has just recently begun, so you can admire them in all their glory. The fifth prince understands that His Highness Alexander often spends time in the garden when he needs to collect his thoughts, so the magician is sure that he is there right now. The girl thinks that this is a bit strange because the guy promises her to forget about the dove with the letter in exchange, so something is clearly wrong there. The young lady asks again if he just wants her to go with him, and if this is not another trap from His Highness Alexander. The guy assures her that everything is not like that, but he thinks that he just wants his brother to spend time with his lady who caught his eye. So he asks what he needs to do to earn the trust of the young lady. The main character then tells him to show her his face without a mask, because he doesn't allow anyone to see his face. But if the guy really wants her trust, then he doesn't need to hide his face in front of her. The girl understands that Prince Elliot never goes out without a mask, and no one, except for the royal family, no one has seen him without a mask. For everyone, he is an introvert prince who does not let anyone near him, preferring to keep his heart and personality a secret from everyone. The young lady thinks about what he will do now, and the guy asks if he really understands, and if he takes off his meat, the girl will go with him. The young lady thinks that he is so eager to go into the garden with her that he is willing to reveal his identity to a girl he knows nothing about. So she says that, and she is not going to go back on her word. The guy understands that he is wearing this mask on purpose, still hiding from the vein that the occultists of the dark arts have hung on him. However, if he can somehow pay Alexander for saving his life, then he must do everything in his power. So he begins to remove his mask. And having finished with a slight blush, he asks the princess not to go back on her words. The main character thinks that he turned out to be cuter than she expected, the guy asking if the princess is happy. And the young lady thinks that agreeing to such a dangerous adventure is madness, but she says that she will go with the young man. Then the boy thanks the princess, he begins to put his mask back on and invites the young lady to close her eyes. And a little while later, they find themselves in a garden with roses. The main character says how beautiful it is there. She claims that this is the first time she has seen such a variety of roses, and the young man replies that His Highness Alexander really likes roses. Maria thinks how surprising it is that such a cruel man as Alexander likes such elegant flowers. The young man says that if the girl likes the rose, she can safely take it for herself. The girl asks if this is true, and the prince answers that it is so. Then the main character chooses one of the roses and picks it. She claims that she has never seen such a beautiful rose. And the fifth prince says that this rose is called Lorana, and this type of rose is very common in their empire. There is also a very beautiful legend associated with this rose. The main character asks what this legend is and whether the young man can tell it. The guy claims that a long time ago, the king of their country fell in love with a commoner but before he could finish his story, he noticed His Highness, so the young man immediately turned around and said that he would tell this story later. After all, he suddenly remembered that he forgot one thing in the workshop, so the girl can wait for him here. Maria asks where he is, but the guy by this time has already evaporated into thin air. The main character thinks that he was trying to escape from someone, but when the girl continues on her way, she crashes into someone. She immediately bends down and tries to collect the papers. The girl apologizes and claims that she wasn't looking where she was going and it's all her fault. But when she sees who she ran into, she thinks, "How unlucky I am." His Highness the First Prince asks what the girl is doing there, and the young lady replies that His Highness Elliot invited her into the garden to admire the roses. But when she hands one of the papers to Alexander, she asks what it is. The young man replies that the young lady's dress knocked everyone off their feet, and every lady at the ball was whispering about how she wanted to buy the same dress. So he thought that he could get another source of income from this. The silver-haired lady says that she doesn't think that's a good idea. Then His Highness asks why the girl thinks so. And the main character replies that although her dress turned out to be very impressive, its design is quite complicated, after which she offers His Highness to take a look. The girl claims that at first glance, pulling the belt and revealing a completely different dress is not some kind of complex idea. When modeling such a dress, you need to think about the style, the fabric of both dresses, and also the dress may not open the first time. So even though the payment is great, it took a lot of time and materials to achieve this result. The young man thinks that Maria is unusually smart, and he wonders if it was she who came up with such a dress and supervised the entire process with the tailor. And the young lady says that the production of such a dress will require a lot of money and investment, and perhaps these costs will not lead to the expected result. The first prince says that these were very useful comments, so he will take them into account, but then he points to this rose. The main character says that His Highness Elliot allowed her to pick any rose she liked, and she thinks that he is probably angry that the girl came there anyway. But the young lady remembers that Alexander seems to like roses, and maybe she can soften his anger a little. So the young lady hands him the rose she recently picked. But when the girl hands him a rose, His Highness becomes embarrassed. He realizes that this is Laurent's rose. In the Link Empire, if a person gives you this rose, it is comparable to a declaration of love. According to legend, the king fell in love with a commoner, but despite their different status, he gave this rose to his beloved, vowing eternal love. They got married, and their couple was loved by all the people. This legend is still very popular in the Empire, and giving Laurent's rose is a very tender and sensual gesture. But he thinks that the young lady does not know about this legend, so he asks why she does not give this rose to Lester. The main character asks if he thinks so and then agrees. Damn, the Heat thinks that for the young lady it is an ordinary rose and she did not put any meaning into this gesture. And the young lady claims that she hopes His Highness Lester will like her gift, because any man would be happy to receive a gift from his beloved. At this time, the prince felt some pain in his heart, and the silver-haired lady said that then let him allow her to deviate. But Alexander tells her to wait. The girl looks at him and asks if His Highness wants to ask anything else. The girl mentally asks him not to start a new interrogation and just let her go. The young man can't think of anything better to do than ask if she can tell him a little more about her dress. He understands that he can't just let her go and that something is clearly wrong with him, and the main character wonders if he's so fired up about the idea of starting a new business. The girl understands that she can tell him, but she's already explained almost everything to him. The young lady claims that silk embroidery was used in the dress, and although it is almost invisible, it looks better in the light. But when a light wind blew, the young lady's hair rose a little and His Highness noticed a hickey on her neck. His Highness the First Prince wonders if Lester really put him there and blushes at the thought. The blonde man ponders what he is thinking about, while the main character turns to His Highness. And he, all nervous, asks what is going on. The young lady understands that she has the feeling that he is not listening to her at all, and besides, he has turned red. So the girl asks if everything is okay with him, but the young man only at that moment snatches the papers from her hands and screams that everything is okay. He says that he has learned all he needed to know, so he wishes Lady Darkuri well. The young lady wonders what happened to him, but looking at the counter above his head, she saw the number 11 there. At this time, the fifth prince approached from behind, like a young lady. He apologizes for the wait, and the main character is scared because he appeared very suddenly. The girl knows that he is a magician, but does not understand why he sneaks up on her like that. The red-haired youth says he will escort the young lady to her chambers because Brother Lester must be waiting for her. Maria asks if he has already found what he was looking for in the workshop. The guy replies that yes, and he found the tool he needed, after which he immediately went to her. But he understands that he has actually been watching their conversation all this time and is very happy that everything went well. The main character says that he sees that he is pleased with himself, but she hopes that he will not forget their conversation. The girl understands that this is the only reason she agreed to go there. The young man claims that of course he has never seen a dove, and the main character smiles and extends her hand to him, after which they find themselves in Lester's estate. But when the girl opens the door, Lester immediately hugs her. He says that thank God Marie is okay. The main character asks if the prince was so worried about her, but the girl thinks that although she can understand his feelings, a crazy woman lives within the walls of the palace who destroyed his beloved, and he is afraid that he might lose someone again. But the girl will never allow this, because she will not only save her life, but also kill this bastard Louis. Lester suggests the lady to come into the room because they need to make a plan for further actions. The main character wonders if he is talking about the plan concerning Carla. The young man replies that she is right, but then he sees a rose in the young lady's hands and asks about it. The girl thinks that she wanted to give it to Lester. She holds out this rose and says that His Highness Elliot showed her the rose garden and allowed her to pick any rose she liked. And now she gives this rose to Lester. The guy is a little shocked by this and asks if Elliot told. What does Laurent's rose mean in the language of flowers? The main character says no, and she just thought this rose was very beautiful, so she picked it. The young man asks if this is all, and Mary asks what the meaning of this rose is. The guy claims that according to legend, King Link gave it to his beloved, who was a commoner, and in the language of flowers, this rose means eternal and pure love. The main character now understands that she wanted to give this rose to that psycho Alexander. And the second prince takes this rose and says that he will accept it anyway. But the young lady tells him to wait, because this rose is given to a special person, and they do not have any feelings for each other, so she would rather give this thunderstorm to another person. But the young man claims that he has already received this rose from her and does not intend to give it back. Then the main character tells His Highness not to be so harmful, and Lester asks who she was going to give this rose to. The girl replies that she was going to give it to her nanny Isla, because she is like a second mother to her. The girl understands that Ayah is a person dear to her heart, so she wants to give this rose to her. Then the young man claims that if this is the case, he will return the rose, and the main character thanks him. But the second prince insists that she take into account that he wants to receive Laurent's next rose. The main character remains silent in response to this, and thinks to herself that even though it is just a joke, for some reason it sounds from his lips as if the guy really wants to get it from her. But when the main character goes down the corridor, she sees the maids whispering excitedly and asking if something happened. The girls apologize and say that they can't find Ayla. Then the young lady, in shock, asks if her nanny is missing. After all, she was there before the ball, and it was the nanny who helped her put on her dress. One of the maids claims that they were short of some ingredients for tomorrow's dinner, so they sent the coachman to town. And Ayla was asked to bring him a list, but she never returned. Maria then asks if the girls know Kucherov, who drove the carriage. The girl understands that this is the guest house of the second prince, and no one would let in a carriage with a coachman they didn't know. The maid says that, unfortunately, she doesn't know his name, but she definitely remembers that he carried a sword with him. Lester, in shock, asks if he carried a sword, because if so, then he was not a coachman, but a soldier of the royal family. The main character hopes that they are joking, but the young man continues and says that besides soldiers, only his older brother Alexander and Lady Carla's servants can carry weapons. The silver-haired lady realizes that Carla has kidnapped Ayla. Meanwhile, the nanny is sitting in the basement. The lady with pink hair says that the kidnapping was the right decision after all. She smiles and apologizes to Madame, saying that she had nothing to do with it, but her mistress is to blame for it. The girl claims that she is sure that Maria will come and save her nanny, but the woman asks what the girl is trying to achieve. But then a dagger is pressed to her throat, and Carla says that it's nothing special, and they will just wait until her mistress comes to Ayla's rescue and immediately grabs her. After all, she dared to touch her main treasure, so she can't help but teach the girl a lesson. The nanny asks what she's talking about, and the girl replies that she shouldn't worry because Maria will not immediately fall into eternal sleep, and first she will disfigure the girl's beautiful face. Then she will give every man the opportunity to use her beautiful body. And in the end, she will cut off her legs and arms, watching as she lives out the last minute of her life. The nanny then claims that she won't let them do that. She snatches the knife from the guard's hands, and then she directs it at herself and understands that she needs to plunge herself into eternal sleep, and then the princess will definitely not appear there. But suddenly someone hits the nanny, and the lady with pink hair says how stupid Madame is. And even if she plunges into eternal sleep, the fate of her mistress is predetermined. The girl with pink hair tells the servants not to put Madame into eternal sleep, and she also allows you to have fun with her body until the princess arrives there. Lester only grabs the main character by the hand and screams, "Where the hell is she going?" And Maria screams that she needs to be saved Elu. The main character understands that she needs to hurry because God only knows what Carla has planned. Lester asks the girl if she understands how thoughtless it is to go alone, and the main character then screams out what the prince is proposing. But His Highness says that first. You have to calm down because Carla won't put her into eternal sleep. The main character thinks that she swore that she would protect her nanny even at the cost of her life. That's why the girl screams. How can they not understand that the nanny is more precious to her than her own life? The main character thinks that she is ready to sacrifice everything she has just for her. So the girl says that Carla is ruthless and crazy, and what should they do if she has already done it to Ayla? Something terrible. She then tells the prince to let her go now, but Lester grabs her hand and pulls her back. After which, the main character kisses him on the cheek and, shocked by this, asks what His Highness is doing. And the young man with silver hair asks if she has calmed down. After which, he picks up the rose from the floor, and he says that the young lady dropped her gift. After which, the guy says that he is the one who will go to Carla. And the girl can wait there. After that, one of the roomers comes to them with a scroll. The main character asks what it is, and Lester replies that he remembers their agreement, and the girl wanted a friendly pact with their empire. That's why. As soon as the main character's maid returns to the guest house, let them immediately leave with her back to their homeland. The main character looks at the document in shock and asks why the guy did this and what about his freedom. But Lester only says that enough is enough, and he will go to Carla and promise to marry her in exchange for the life of the young lady and the life of her nanny. The main character, in shock, asks what he is talking about, and in her thoughts adds whether he decided to marry this crazy woman in order to save them. And is the guy ready to give up his freedom for her sake? At the same moment, the main character tells him to wait. The girl claims that she is against it, and she does not need His Highness to sacrifice himself. But the prince replies that his father himself wanted him to marry Carla, and their plan was doomed to failure from the start. The guy takes the main character by the hand and says that his father was never on the side of his sons and would never have accepted the girl as his bride. Lester tells Marie that everything is fine and let at least one of them find their happiness, after which he leaves. The main character screams at him to wait and then tears up the peace pact. The silver-haired boy asks in shock what she is doing, and the main character replies that if he really thought that happiness at such a price would make her happy, then His Highness clearly doesn't know her well. After all, the girl is not going to give up to Carla and offers to fight together, because she believes that the prince, like no one else, deserves happiness. When the main character looks at the counter above his head, she sees the number 26 there. And then the main character extends her hand and offers to sign a peace pact once they deal with Carla once and for all. Then he asks what His Highness will say to this. The silver-haired lady thinks that she will not let the dwarf go unpunished after all she has done. The prince takes the heroine's hand and thanks her, and the girl claims that she is sure there are many more ways to find Ayla in other ways. Movies, for example, ask His Highness Elliot to kidnap Ayla with magic. The girl understands that this is the fastest and most effective way of all. But Lester says that the young lady does not quite understand how strong Eli is, and if he demonstrates his true powers to everyone, it will cost him his life, because few magicians have teleportation magic. And for people, such magic is associated with the dark arts, so if an outsider sees his true steelies, he can easily be accused of using dark magic and executed. The main character thinks about how they can save Ayla without sacrificing anyone's life. And the prince says that the only force that will help them save Ayla is Alexander's elite squad called the Thunderers. The main character asks who they are, and she herself realizes that it seems she saw Alexander training the guys in the royal garden. The second prince replies that Alex is the first prince of the empire, and the queen's only son. He is the only one of the 5 princes whose authority is comparable to the king, and if he agrees to help them, then something might work out. The main character then grabs Lester by the shoulder and screams that they will go. The girl claims that she will explain everything to His Highness Alexander and ask for his support. The silver-haired boy says that he will then prepare a carriage and they will head there, but the main character says that she does not think that this is a good idea, because Carla will immediately understand where they are going and can take countermeasures. The main character thinks that Carl's residence is located opposite the headquarters of the first prince, and if they want their plan to work, they need to go to Alexander without attracting unnecessary attention to themselves. Lester replies that it is good, and states that he will then send a messenger with a letter to Alex and describe their situation. The main character replies that it is good, and as soon as the guy finishes, they can immediately move to His Highness. A little while later, the young lady is ready to leave, and at this time, the prince is reading the letter from the messenger, in which it is written that Princess Darkuri's nanny was kidnapped, and if Carla finds out about their plans, she will immediately get rid of the hostage. The prince thinks that the Thunderer squad will be able to deal with Carla's bodyguards, and Lester was well aware of this, so he turned to him for help. Alexander turns to Elliot and then orders him to do something. After this, a servant enters the room and states that His Highness the First Prince wishes to see Mr. Lester. Then the blonde man says, "Let him come in," and the main character enters the room with the second prince. The master says that his brother must have received his letter, but the blonde interrupts him and says that he refuses. The silver-haired boy is shocked by this. He asks his brother why he doesn't want to give the order to the Thunderers, because Carla literally took a hostage from a foreign country. But the prince says that at the moment there are many guests from other countries living in the palace. So let his brother imagine their surprise when a fight breaks out between members of the royal family over a nanny. The main character thinks that the prince speaks about her nanny so frivolously. Well, the girl is ready to give her life for her. The main character says that she understands that in the eyes of the prince, she is an ordinary servant. But for her, the nanny is part of the family, so Maria asks His Highness for help. The prince then comes closer and tells the young lady not to scream so much. After all, he said that he would not involve the Thunderers in this conflict, but that does not mean that he will not help them. The prince claims that he will personally deal with Carla and then leaves. The main character screams at him to wait, but Alexander only mounts his horse. Then Maria asks to let her go with him, because the life of a member of her family is at stake, so the girl cannot just stand aside. The first prince then takes the main character and sits her down next to him. The young lady, a little excited, says that she can mount another horse. However, Alexander says that there is no one in the royal stable faster than the griffin, so the young lady must hold on tighter, after which they are already on their way. Lester orders the servant to prepare his horse for him. A little while later, the main character arrives at the place, and Alexander helps her get off the horse. The prince claims that he said he would deal with everyone and asks why the girl even followed him. And the main character thinks that this horse is just some kind of monster, and she can't even feel her legs. The blonde, noticing how beautiful the main character looks, becomes a little embarrassed and looks away, after which he claims that they are almost at the dungeon and he will check the area for additional security. But for now, the main character can sit down and catch her breath. When the main character sits down on the bench, she thinks how her legs hurt, but suddenly someone appears behind her. It turns out to be the first prince. He claims that everything is clean there, so they can go. And the main character then asks if His Highness has already looked at everything. And she herself thinks how he managed to do it so quickly. The guy strokes his horse and says that he is a good boy, and also claims that they will return soon so the griffin can wait for them there. After which he extends his hand to the main character and asks if she can go. When the girl answers yes, then they set off on their way. A little while later, they already see the entrance to the dungeon, and the prince says that they need to go this way. When the main character sees the guards lying on the floor, she wonders if the guy really dealt with all the guards on his own. And the prince only opens the doors to the dungeon. He claims that all that remains is to go down the stairs, after which they do so. The main character thinks that she sees worse in the dark, so it is better to descend slowly. But suddenly, the girl almost falls and almost makes a loud sound. Alexander covers her mouth with his hand and whispers that he asked her not to make noise. The main character understands that he is right, but she does not believe it on purpose. The blonde then takes the young lady by the hand, and the main character is a little surprised by this and asks what he is doing. The prince tells the girl to hold on tighter. After all, she sees worse in the dark, and if she holds on to him, she definitely won't fall. Maria thinks that she perceived him as a strict, crazy psycho, but His Highness not only decided to help them with Lester, but also shows concern for her. But when these two go around the corner, they see that there is another guard. Maria gets a little scared, and the prince, without losing his vigilance, immediately cuts his torch and knocks the guard unconscious. The main character thinks that the prince was holding her hand the whole time, but he knocked out the guard with such ease. The blonde then claims that they are almost there, tells the main character that this is good, and then sees that the door to one of the cells is open. But when the girl looks there, she sees that there is something lying on the floor inside her Ayah. The main character lets go of the prince's hand and runs to her nanny. But when she got there, the girl wondered why all the security was out of commission, after which she turned to Ayah, who is unconscious. The fifth prince, who is standing to the side, says that the nanny is fine and that it seems she was knocked out by a blow from a blunt object, but he didn't find any more serious wounds. And the main character, forgive me for crying. She immediately runs up to the red-haired young man and says that he saved her, after which she thanks His Highness. Alexander looks at them angrily, and the red-haired boy understands that he is jealous. He immediately distances himself from the main character and says that His Highness Alexander personally ordered him to deal with the guards inside the dungeon, and it was his idea. Maria then turns to the first prince and thinks that she should thank the blonde for everything he did, after which she approaches His Highness and thanks him. The blonde just turns away and says that he is not worth the gratitude, after which he starts kicking one of the guards. The main character thinks why beat him, since he is already unconscious. And the red-haired boy says that he knocked out the guard with magic, but His Highness wants to leave traces of a struggle on them to hide his involvement. Maria understands that despite his status, His Highness Elliot faces execution if he does not hide his true potential. But suddenly, the prince tells his brother to go away because someone is coming. Then the magician does so. The main character, when she turns around, sees a girl with pink hair. She asks what His Highness is doing there. The silver-haired lady realizes that it is Carla, and the prince then turns to her and tells her to take the trouble to explain what is going on there. And why did she take an innocent person hostage? The girl with pink hair asks if the nanny is really innocent, and in his thoughts he adds that of all the people this litter could have attracted, the girl brought Alexander. But even for this case, Carla had her own plan prepared, so she claims that this innocent lady stole her jewelry. The girl with pink hair thinks, how long will the first prince of the Link Empire protect this mat? The main character, looking at the wallet, thinks that it definitely does not belong to Ayah, and the girl with pink hair says that these ornaments were a gift from His Highness Lester, and Lady Darkcourt ordered them to be stolen, clearly harboring a strong grudge against her. But since Maria is there, let her take responsibility and confess to what she did. Carla thinks she will get rid of both of them once and for all. The main character says that she did not order her nanny to do anything like that, and the girl with pink hair asks how the young lady will prove this. Otherwise, where could her nanny have gotten these decorations from? The main character only asks what prevented the real criminal from planting this wallet on Ayah and accusing her of theft. Carla is a little wary of this, and the main character continues and claims that since these are gifts dear to Carla from His Highness Lester, then why didn't she take them away immediately? And she left this wallet right in the hands of the thief. The girl understands that Carla is trying with all her might to shift the blame onto her and Ayah. The lady with pink hair asks how she should know, because her bodyguards caught the nanny and sent her to prison, and she just came to pick up the stolen goods. Carla smiles and thinks that no matter how hard Maria tries, her nephew will believe her and not some stranger from a foreign country. The main character wonders if Alexander really won't believe her, and she will be unjustly executed again. The girl immediately turns to His Highness and screams whether he thinks that the dwarf's words are not suspicious at all. The girl understands that if His Highness believes the villainess, then she will consider him a complete cretin for the rest of her life. And the girl with pink hair turns to Alexander and says that he understands that she has no reason to lie. Carla understands that the guy values his status and the influence of the royal family, so he will never create a conflict over some betting. But Alexander merely drops his ball and asserts that he will not allow the dwarf to tarnish the name of their imperial family with her selfish whims. So he orders the girl to let this woman go right now. The lady with pink hair is shocked by this and screams for the guy to wait because she is his niece and a member of the royal family. But the blonde says that her background doesn't matter if she commits a crime, and if the girl continues to deny it, he will send her to court. Carla then points to one of the guards, and then he pulls his sword out of its sheath and starts attacking His Highness. The main character screams for His Highness to look back, and the prince immediately deals with a bunch of guards, and they fall to the floor in front of the feet of the girl with pink hair. The blonde then looks coldly at Carla, and she fearfully apologizes and says that apparently her bodyguards misunderstood the situation, for which they received a severe punishment. The prince then says that as punishment, the lady with pink hair will be deprived of her bodyguards from this day on. And also until the end of the celebration, he forbids her to leave the walls of her room. And right now, the girl will apologize to Princess Darkori. The main character is a little shocked by this, and Carla is very outraged because she is a member of the royal family. And now I must bow my head before the princess of a small and miserable country. But Alexander only sticks his sword into the ground and tells the girl to move. This scares Carla, and he bows before the main character, asking her to forgive him. And then he leaves in a rage. At this time, Alexander turns to the main character and says that he also wants to apologize to her. After all, Mary and her nanny suffered at the hands of a member of the royal family. But he promises that this will not happen again and he will personally ensure this. The main character says that he shouldn't apologize because the guy did so much for her and Ayah. And the main thing is that her nanny is okay. Maria thinks that, thank God, everything ended well. And the prince, looking at the main character, thinks that in a similar situation, any lady would have already turned pale with fear. But the girl holds on steadfastly, after which the blonde guy tells Elliot to go out. The guy with red hair agrees, and the main character turns to him and asks if he can cure Ayah. Then His Highness replies that he can, but he is forbidden to use healing magic on anyone other than himself. The blonde then approaches them and says that they will take the nanny to the healing house, and Luca's herbs will quickly get her back on her feet. The main character then says that she will be very grateful to them, but she herself thinks that. The third prince of the Link Empire, Luke is a scientist who has dedicated all his research to botany, and he can make medicine to help Ayah. The girl asks if she can go to the healing house with her nanny because she doesn't want to leave her in this state. Alexander says that of course she can, and the red-haired prince says that she can do as she wishes. After which, he takes the young lady by the hand and says that he will accompany them. The blonde tells his brother to come to his office after he finishes. The red-haired boy just smiles and then teleports away. Lester, while outside, sees a pink-haired girl emerge from the dungeon. The second prince wonders if Carla came out completely alone, but then he sees that Alexander is also coming out after her. That's why he immediately runs up to his brother and thinks, where is Marie and why isn't she with him? That's why the guy asks about it. The first prince replies that Mary and her nurse have gone to the house for healing, and that Elliot will accompany them. Ayah, although not seriously, has suffered, so she needs treatment and rest, and Mary wished to be near her. Lester wonders since when his brother treats Mary so disrespectfully as if they were friends. The silver-haired boy says he is grateful to his brother for his help, but he could take care of the rest himself. The blonde then asks if he took care of it so late at night, and Lester replies that the girl is his lover, and he can take full responsibility for her. And his brother, until recently, considered her a spy. Alexander only jumps on his horse and says that Marie herself wanted to stay with her nanny, and did not refuse Elliot's help. And as for the second one, he no longer suspects her. The silver-haired boy is shocked and thinks how he cannot suspect the girl. And the blonde turns to his brother and says that if he is so worried about the girl, then he should go to the House of Healing. A little while later, Alexander is already looking for Elliot all over the house. He realizes that he was not in the office or in the room either, so he wonders if he might be in the bathroom. After which, the first prince says that he is entering. Well, the maids only claim that Lady Marie's bath is ready. The blonde then turns red and wonders what the girl forgot in Elliot's bathroom. A little while ago, when the fifth prince arrived at the healing house, he claimed that this lady urgently needed a healer. After which, they put the main character's nanny on the bed, and a little while later, she woke up, and the first words she said after she opened her eyes were that, "Thank God everything was okay with my lady." Maria said that this was enough and that she was fine, but the nanny suffered a little. The main character understands that she was not just knocked out, but also beaten, so she says that the nanny needs to rest now, so let her listen to the doctors. Elliot at this time orders the servants to prepare a warm bath with rose oil for their guests, after which he turns to Lady Marie and says that the doctors will take care of Madame Al, and that she should also rest and, for example, take a bath. The main character thinks that, to be honest, she really could use some washing away of all the dirt from standing for a long day, so she thanks the prince, after which she asks the maids to take care of Ayah. The girl is only smiled at and told by the mistress to rely on them. Alexander is now wondering what the girl forgot in the bathroom with Elliot. The maids are asking the mistress how she likes the water and if it is too hot. Maria replies that no, everything is fine and the smell is simply amazing. One of the maids claims that His Highness Elliot ordered to add oil of Ross to soften the skin, and this is His Highness Alexander's favorite scent. The blonde wonders what his brother asked to do, and the main character, looking into the bathtub with rose petals, thinks whether she was mistaken after all. Alexandra will begin. After which she says that His Highness Alexander turned out to be kinder than she expected, and the guy is a little embarrassed by this. One of the maids then tells the main character that he is exactly that kind of person, so she asks the young lady not to doubt him. And the second lady tells the head maid that the girl is a princess, so I should behave so rudely with her. The head maid then apologizes and says that it's just that Mr. Alexander did so many good things for them. The main character then just smiles and says that it's nothing to worry about, and to tell the truth, she appears to the maids and remembers the atmosphere that reigned in her home. The girl understands that in the royal family, all the servants are like part of the family, and they always spend time together. After this, one of the maids asks if His Highness Lester left a mark on the main character's neck. Maria, looking at this trace, thinks about how best to explain, and then claims that in a dream His Highness confused her with his beloved dog, and then he bit her. The girl claims that he fell asleep right next to her and in his sleep began to bite her neck, but she herself was shocked to hear who he kissed in his sleep. The blonde is then a little surprised, and now he understands that this hickey was put by accident, but then the guy gets embarrassed and thinks, what the hell difference does it make to him, the maid's heat? They say that His Highness Lester has always been distinguished by a romantic new you, unlike His Highness Alexander. But His Highness Alexander simply always approaches everything so seriously, and this scares off the ladies of the court. And the main character understands that for the same reason he scared her off. Maria says that she thinks that His Highness actually has many admirers, and the head maid replies that she thinks so too, and all the maids admire His Highness Alexander. After which she asks the lady what she thinks about His Highness. The girls are already all in anticipation of gossip, and the main character then smiles and says that she admires him as much as they do. The head maid says that she knew it and claims that the young lady should get to know His Highness better, because she is sure that the girl will develop brighter feelings for him. After this, one of the maids offers to wash Mrs. Darcourt's hair now. His Highness Alexander at this time stands near the door, all red, and thinks about those words of admiration. The guy grabs the door handle and realizes that this is definitely not the conversation he needed to hear, after which he leaves the room. The main character, a little while later, comes to her nanny, and she claims that everything is fine with her and she can return to her business. But when the woman tries to get up, her body is pierced by pain. Maria comes up to her and says that she should forget about these matters because until the woman gets better completely, she won't see any work. At this time, Elliot enters the room and tells Lady Marie that breakfast is already waiting for her. The main character turns and says that she will be right there, and when she leaves, she tells Ayah to rest. A little while later, Elliot asks how Madame Isla is feeling, and the main character says that thanks to His Highness Luca's medicine, she is already much better and is already eager to work. The red-haired boy says he is glad to hear it, but for the nanny to fully recover, she needs to rest for a couple more days. The main character, noticing someone at the table, wishes good morning. It turns out to be His Highness Alexander, and he also wishes the girl a good morning. The main character wonders what happened to him. After all, the prince didn't even look at her, and did she do something wrong again? Maria says that thanks to the support of His Highness, Ayah received proper treatment and rest, so she wants to express her gratitude to him again. His Highness the Prince simply says that there is no need to thank him again, and Maria wonders what is wrong with him. The prince at this time thinks that he needs to calm down and pretend that he did not hear anything last night, and also behave naturally. After which he asks the girl if all this politeness is boring, and the main character asks what he is talking about. The blonde says that calling him by his full name and title is a bit much, and usually people just call him Alex. But the guy, looking back at his newspaper, thinks what he's talking about, and it's as if he's begging her for the girl to call him something else. The main character says that he is the first prince of the empire, and she should show him due respect. But the blonde guy just says that he doesn't care. And then the main character asks what he's talking about. His Highness the Crown Prince says that the girl can call him whatever she likes. Maria wonders what happened to His Highness and why he is so angry. And then the lady with silver hair addresses Mr. Alex not by his title, and she wonders if he will calm down if she does so. But when she looks at the guy, she sees that his affection has increased and thinks, what just happened? And the blonde, when he turns to Maria, asks if she herself doesn't mind that he uses such an informal form of address towards her. It's one thing when Lester addresses her like that, and another when he does. The main character replies that it doesn't offend her at all, and Mr. Alexander can address her simply by her first name. But looking at the sympathy counter, the main character sees that it has increased again, but the guy was angry with her a second ago. His Highness the Crown Prince wonders why he is so happy about this, and he is the first prince of the empire, so he must behave with dignity. But the level of sympathy of the prince grows and grows. He turns to the main character and tells her not to misunderstand him, because the fact that they call each other by name means absolutely nothing. Maria is in complete shock at how quickly the prince's affection is growing, and she thinks it is almost 30%. And although the girl does nothing, sympathy grows by itself. After that, the main character smiles and says that she, of course, understands the pity, and the prince's sympathy increases once again. The blonde wonders why the young lady is looking at him like that, and the main character, when she sees that his sympathy is already 35 units, she thinks that his sympathy is only growing and growing. His Highness the Crown Prince at this time thinks that the girl is looking him straight in the eyes and wondering if she really enjoys talking to him so much. Well then, the blonde guy turns to Marie and says that she must be hungry, after which they claim that he asked her to prepare the most popular dishes of their empire, so the girl can feel free to try them. The silver-haired lady thanks the prince and then tries one of the berries. The girl thinks how delicious it is and then asks His Highness if he would like to have breakfast with her. The blonde replies that he has already eaten, so the young lady can eat to her heart's content, and their main character thanks him. The girl wonders what kind of berry it is because she has never eaten anything like it before. And the prince, looking at her, thinks that Marie must be having a much more fun time in the company of Lester. The red-haired boy, watching all this, understands that his brother has lost heart again, so it is time to take countermeasures. A little while later, as His Highness the Crown Prince was walking down the corridor, his brother addressed him, and then he held out 2 tickets and claimed that a fair would soon take place, which he personally organized. So he asked if Alexander would like to go to it with Lady Marie. The blonde man asks why he should go with her, and the red-haired boy says that Lady Carla treated their guests very disrespectfully, and as the first prince. He must take responsibility for their niece's actions and apologize properly to Lady Darkcourt. But the blonde replies that he thinks the young lady would be better off going with Lester, and in her thoughts she adds that it is with him that she smiles so brightly. The 5th prince tells his brother not to think about His Highness Lester, but about what he himself desires. The blonde then unclenches his fists and takes the ticket to his brother. He claims that he doesn't want Lester to get the wrong idea about going to the theater, so Elliot will go with them. The red-haired boy then just smiles and says that Marie should be in her room now, so the blonde can go to her and invite her to the fair. His Highness the Crown Prince agrees, but Elliot thinks that maybe he is in too much of a hurry, and his brother is not yet ready for more decisive action. A little while later, he will already be in the room of the main character, and the girl asks who it is, and the Crown Prince answers that it is him. That is, Alexander. Then Maria opens the door and asks if he needs anything, and the blonde replies that he wanted to apologize again for his niece's behavior. The main character says that it's not worth it, but she thinks that he has already done enough for her and Ayah, so she can't demand more. The guy hands her tickets and says that as an apology, he wants to invite her to a performance at the Royal Theatre. The main character understands that this is the most popular theater on the entire continent, and even the aristocrats from the Link Empire cannot get even 1 ticket. The blonde guy says that Elliot gave him these tickets, so the main character interrupts him and asks if he wants to go with her. His Highness the Crown Prince is a little surprised by this, and the main character, looking at his sympathy scale, sees that it has increased again. Maria then asks if the guy wants her to go with Ayah, because if so, then unfortunately the nanny still feels bad and she thinks that she should refrain from going anywhere. And the blonde guy then says that he is not talking about this, and the main character thinks that the guy must be talking about Lester, because they are lovers for everyone. After which the girl asks if Mr. Alexander wants her to go with His Highness Lester. The blonde screams, no. But then he is surprised by his own actions and says that Elliot is the organizer of the production, so he cannot go with him. So he asks the young lady if she would like to go with him. The main character understands that it would be impolite to refuse his invitation, and Ayah needs peace and quiet, because that way she can at least get a little rest from her. That's why Maria, with a smile on her face, claims that she loves the theater and would be happy to keep him company. His Highness the Crown Prince also smiles in response to this and says that during the day there is a fair next to the theater, so they can take a walk there before the performance begins. The main character then turns around and says that she will change her clothes right now. And the blonde then becomes a little wary and understands that the girl will now think that they are going on some kind of date. So he yells out that Elliot is still going with them, so Lester shouldn't worry about it. Maria only smiles in response to this and thinks that she and Lester are not in love with each other. So she thinks that the guy won't care. A short time later, His Highness the Crown Prince is already near the carriage. The red-haired boy behind him thinks he's a third wheel there. So Elliot claims he needs to check on the actor's final rehearsal. So he asks if his brother can hang out without him. But the blonde asks a little nervously if this is really so necessary. Elliot then turns around and thinks how creepy this is. And His Highness the Crown Prince claims that he doesn't want to be alone with her. The fifth prince smiles in response to this and thinks that his brother really has no experience in communicating with girls, and this time he will have to help him. A little while later, the main character arrives at the scene and apologizes for the wait. The blonde turns around and says that there is no need to apologize because they are in no hurry. But when he sees the main character, he becomes embarrassed. And at that moment, he asks if they will be accompanied by bodyguards. Alexander only asks why they need bodyguards. And the main character then understands that with her is the first prince of the empire and the captain of the strongest squad of knights, Thunderers, as well as the most powerful magician on the continent. That's why the girl thinks that they really won't need any security, and says that she also thinks that they don't need security. His Highness the Crown Prince extends his hand to her at this time. And the young man with red hair, seeing this, smiles and says that they are leaving. A little while later, they are already at the festival. The main character claims that it is very lively there, and the prince says that during the birthday celebration, a magnificent fair is organized. Looking at the face of the main character, he thinks that the young lady seems cheerful. And then Maria notices one of the amusements, and the prince, approaching there, says that it is an ordinary shooting gallery, and by hitting the target several times in a row, you can win a prize. After which, he puts a handful of gold coins in the merchant's hand, and he is very surprised by this. And the prince takes a gun in his hands and starts shooting, after which he hits the target straight on. And then he asks if the young lady wants to try. The main character says yes, but she doesn't think she can do it as well as His Highness. The girl realizes that she can shoot a bow, but she's never tried shooting a gun. The blonde then tells the young lady to stand up straight and stretch out her chest and then square her shoulders. The lady with silver hair does so, and the prince tells her to look straight at the fly. Doing so, the main character pulls the trigger and hits the target, after which she turns to His Highness the Crown Prince and with a smile on her face says that she succeeded. But then the girl realizes what an awkward situation they are in and becomes just as embarrassed as the prince. The young man then steps back and says that he thinks Marie can handle it herself now, and the main character replies that yes. And a little while later, having hit the target a couple more times, she realizes that it's more fun than she thought. The merchant says that the lady with silver hair is a fine girl, and that this is the first time he has seen a lady wield a weapon so well. At this time, the prince shoots near them and hits the target, after which he claims that it is not as difficult as it seems to them and smiles. And the main character wonders if he just smiled at her. At this time, the young man with red hair approaches his brother and asks what he is doing, since it is customary for girls to give in. But then they notice the young lady fire a couple more shots, all of which hit their target. The main character asks if an ordinary lady can do this, and the merchant says that if they hit the target 5 times, they will receive a prize. After which he points to the hairpin, and the main character turns to Alex, offering to make a bet. The girl says that whoever hits the targets faster will take the reward, and the prince agrees. After which, the lady with silver hair suggests shooting in turns, and the blonde says that he will then give her a head start, because if he shoots first, the girl will lose so quickly. The heroine thinks that the prince is too self-confident and then hits the target, but His Highness the Crown Prince does not lag behind and does the same. The young man with red hair thinks that the atmosphere is somehow strange, and the main character at this time notices that there is one target left until victory, and she will not give up so easily. But suddenly, a boy runs past the young lady, and the main character is distracted by this. But when the gun fires, the girl sees that it missed the target, after which she tells the prince to shoot. The fifth prince at this time begs his brother. He misses at least this time, but the prince hits the target right away and takes the reward. The main character turns to Alexander and says that her defeat was inevitable, and the guy replies that he thought so too. After which he puts a hairpin on the young lady and says that since she lost, she is obliged to wear this hairpin. The main character asks what he is talking about, and the prince says that Marie looks very good on her. The silver-haired lady is embarrassed by this and thanks the prince, and when she looks at his level of sympathy, she sees that it is 38, and the young lady wonders if this has happened again. After which she invites the blonde to go further, and she thinks that today Alexander's sympathy is growing with every minute. The guy lifts the hairpin a little and says that it seems very heavy, so the young lady should not move. His Highness thinks that the weight of the decoration should be reduced a little so that it stays on the hair. And when the blonde guy adjusts this hairpin on the main character, Elliot snaps his fingers. The main character understands that he is using magic, and when she looks at the fifth prince, he shows that the young lady should be silent. The main character smiles at this and thinks that Alexander pretended to fix her hair while Elliot cast magic on her. So the girl thinks what an amazing teamwork this is. The silver-haired lady thanks Mr. Alex for such a sweet gesture, and she is also grateful that the prince invited her on this walk. The blonde then says that they are worthy of gratitude because he himself insisted on their trip. The red-haired prince says that the show is about to start, so he asks Lady Marie if she would like to dress up for the event, and for example, visit the first trading house in the Link Empire. The main character says that she already has an outfit, but the prince only says that he thinks Elliot is right. After which, the heir to the empire, the prince, approaches the young lady, and he asks if she would like to visit the trading house with him. The main character, with a smile on her face, says that she would be happy to do so. A little while later, the two are already getting out of the carriage, and the young man with red hair says that it's time for him to check how the final rehearsal is going, so they will see each other at the theater. When the crown prince and the young lady enter the trading house and say that they want to look at some costumes, then everyone in shock asks if the guy is His Highness Alexander. After which, one of the workers orders that the best new items be prepared for their guests right now. The main character thinks that the visitors to the trading house clearly did not expect to see the first prince of the empire in the company of a woman. One of the workers says that they are glad that His Highness has chosen their trading house, and then points to the stairs. When they get up, the worker asks if they have a preference in choosing a suit. And His Highness the Crown Prince says that today they will visit the Royal Theater, so they would like to choose a decent outfit for this event. The worker bows and says that he heard them and will immediately prepare options for them. After which, he turns to the main character and says that if she is interested in any dress in the window, then let her know. Alexander then tells Marie to let him know if she likes something. And the prince himself wonders if he allowed himself too much by giving the young lady a hairpin. At this time, the main character thinks that the dresses from the first trading house must be of the best quality. But then her gaze is drawn to one of them. After which, the lady with silver hair calls Mr. Alex and asks Togo to take a look. When the guy comes up, he says that this is the dress that the young lady came to the ball in. The main character says that not quite, and if you look closely, you can see that the structure of this dress is much lighter and more pleasant to the body. And also the embroidery design is completely different. The main character thinks it's a beautiful piece of work, and the crown prince of the empire asks if Marie is interested in fashion. The silver-haired lady responds that she is interested in everything that man creates. With clothes, painting, music, people create truly beautiful things, and such masterpieces unite people's hearts. The crown prince then says that he thinks so too, and that such things need to be protected. Then the employees of the trading house come up to them from behind and apologize for the wait, after which they show their outfits and say that they have prepared matching outfits for the prince and his companion. The tailcoat and dress are made in red and gold shades. The designer was inspired by the flag of the Link Empire when creating these outfits, so they asked to try them on. The main character wonders if they were mistaken for lovers, but then the girl's gaze catches something else. The crown prince is thinking that if they go out in public like this, rumors will spread about their affair, and he doesn't want to have to explain it to Lester. So the blonde tries to say that he thinks these outfits don't suit them. But the main character interrupts him halfway and tells Mr. Alex that these suits were made by a tailor from Darkery. His Highness asks if these suits came from her country. He didn't know that they import clothes to other kingdoms. Maria says that at the moment it is not the most popular industry, and they have only recently started to master it. But the young lady thinks it's a truly amazing piece of work. One of the workers claims that as soon as they saw the style of the dress and the colors the pieces were made in, they simply couldn't resist them, and they were sure that many clients would like these outfits, and they were right. The lady with silver hair at this time turns to His Majesty and offers to try them on. The blonde, seeing the smile on Maria's face, says that if she wants, they can try it on. A little while later, they are already leaving the fitting room, and the employees of the department store say that they look great. The main character and the crown prince then look in the mirror, and the workers say that it suits them very well. The blonde thinks that buying these outfits is not the best idea, and the main character at this time thinks that, as she thought, the dress is very pleasant and light on the body. So it's worth continuing to develop this direction when she arrives home. The prince then asks if the young lady likes this outfit, and the main character replies that it is very much so, and this dress seems to prove the friendship between the Empire and Link and the Kingdom of Darkery. The girl says that she would like to buy this dress and support further imports to the Link Empire. The girl understands that establishing trade relations with other countries is their priority. Alexander then turns to the employee of the trading house and tells them to buy the entire catalog of costumes from the Kingdom of Darkuri and also to purchase 100 types of fabrics from this kingdom for sewing new products. The worker is shocked and asks if they need to buy 100 types, and the main character turns to the prince and asks him if he is in front of her. The girl wonders if the prince wants to support the Kingdom of Darkuri in this way. The guy claims that these outfits are made in the best possible way, so he sees no reason not to support the people who tried so hard to make such beautiful outfits. The main character then almost cries with joy and says that it is very generous of him. The girl understands that if people see the first prince of the empire in an outfit made in Darkuri, that interest in the products will increase. His Highness, the Crown Prince, only claims that he does this only because he himself liked the outfit and not for Marie. The main character tells His Highness that she understands, and the guy thinks that if they go out in these top outfits, all sorts of rumors will spread. So the Crown Prince says he will recommend comfortable outfits like theirs to Elliot, Kai, and Luca. The main character then agrees, and she thinks about Lester. The employee of the trading house says that they are glad that the prince liked these outfits. But if he doesn't like the color scheme, then the men's tailcoat comes in another color. But the prince says he has to refuse because he likes this one. The worker then agrees and asks if they should pack a new outfit. The main character wants to say yes, but the crown prince blocks her and extends his hand. He says no, and there is not much time left before the performance begins. A little while later, the main character carries His Highness and they arrive at the place. The main character thinks that all eyes are directed only at the two of them. At this time, one of the workers welcomes them to the Link Empire's Royal Theater and asks them to enjoy their performance today to the fullest, after which he asks if they would like to drink anything before the performance begins. The prince replies that they would, and that they should be served 2 glasses of red wine. The main character then looks at Alexander and thinks, didn't he say that there is little time left before the start of the performance? And after that, they go to the balcony and the main character sees that it is intended for 2. At this time, one of the workers brings them wine, and the lady with silver hair thinks that there is some strange atmosphere there. So, we need to somehow start a conversation. The main character says that this is her first time visiting the theater of their empire. But suddenly the lights in the theater go out and the main character gets a little scared, and the crown prince asks what is going on. The girl replies that the lights suddenly went out and nothing can be seen. Alexander understands that the young lady is uncomfortable being in the dark, so he extends his hand and tells the girl to close her eyes for a second. The silver-haired lady agrees and does so. The blonde then looks at her closed eyes, as well as at the lips of the main character, after which he begins to approach her closer and closer and almost kisses her. Well, the young lady then opens her eyes and asks when she can open them. Henceforth, at this point, the jammer moves away and says that it is already possible, and the young lady thinks that she has kept them closed for some time. The blonde is very embarrassed and wonders what he is allowing himself to do. The main character at this time looks at him and thinks that they know why Alexander asked her to close her eyes, but he behaves very strangely. At this time, the theater performance begins. One of the actors picks up the Holy Grail and says that this treasure sent by God himself will save their lands from all adversity. Everyone in the theater admires it and thinks how beautiful it is. And the main character wonders if these petals were created with the help of magic. The crown prince then turns to the young lady and asks if something has happened. And the young lady replies that she is simply curious about where the rose petals are coming from, and she adds in her thoughts that probably it was His Highness Elliot who tried, but no one pays attention to whether it is magic or not. The main character says that the petals appeared there as if by magic. But then the girl realizes that this is the Royal Theater and there is no place for magic. And if people understand, everything will be bad. The crown prince then says that everything is true. And in the theater, it is difficult to distinguish reality from fiction. That's why magic is used in the production and no one pays attention to it. The lady with silver hair thinks that if you think about it, the actors know that all this was created with the help of magic. And despite this, His Highness is having so much fun performing on stage. The prince, looking at the young lady, says that most people in their world cannot use magic. And the fact that people do not understand causes them fear and alienation. So Elliot decided to introduce people to magic with the help of theater. And the main character says that it is a great idea, and then asks if it was Mr. Alex who came up with it. The legacy and the prince then asks if it was so obvious. And the main character thinks that many people would criticize the actors for using magic on stage, considering that it could harm the guests. But if one prince of the empire supports this idea, then no one said a word against it. Alexander then suddenly becomes embarrassed and says that there is nothing wrong with that. At this time, two of the actors on stage fly into the air. The main character is very surprised by this, and he places his hand on the hand of His Highness the Crown Prince, asking him to look, because these two are in order in the air. The brunette is a little surprised that the young lady touched his hand. He claims that it must be Elliot's magic again. But then, the silver-haired lady feels the prince take her hand in his. The main character says that yes, and he is right, because the abilities of His Highness Elliot are simply incredible. And if you think about it, it was thanks to His Highness Elliot that she managed to get into the rose garden. The prince thinks about the rose garden, and if you remember, Marie said, that Elliot brought her himself to admire the flowers. The blonde thinks that his brother always said that he wanted to use magic to make people happy. And the young man wonders if this is why his brother brought the young lady to him and showed him Laurent's rose. The main character, looking at the prince, understands that although he praises his younger brother, from his face he is clearly angry at Elliot. But when the silver-haired lady looks at the sympathy scale, she sees the number 43 there. The main character is shocked and thinks that in just a little while they will be on friendly terms. But then the young lady asks him if he was His Highness to let go of her hand. The blonde then looks at the young lady's hand and realizes that the girl was present at the ball as Lester's fiancée, but she doesn't have a wedding ring on her hand yet. Therefore, His Highness the Crown Prince asks the girl to tell him honestly whether she is really in love with Lester. The main character is a little puzzled by this question and does not know what to answer. The girl understands that there is no point in hiding their secret from the prince, so she claims that no, she and Lester are not in love with each other, but he is dear to her as a person. The Crown Prince then takes the young lady's hand again and says that's how it is. The main character is a little surprised and wonders why he won't let go of her hand, so the girl asks if something is wrong. Alexander thinks that this is the first time he has felt such a strange feeling towards a girl, so he claims to have booked a table at a restaurant and then asks if the silver-haired lady would like to join him after the theater. The main character is shocked to see that the affection meter is already at 45 points, and the prince thinks that he can no longer contain these feelings within himself. A little while later, the two are already in the restaurant, and the restaurant staff tells them to come in, after which he shows the table. When they sit down at it, the blonde turns to the main character and says that he hopes she won't mind having a drink with him. Maria asks why not, and when they are already poured a glass of drink, the prince asks what they are drinking for, and the girl says that they are drinking for peace and prosperity of their empire, after which the young lady thinks what a wonderful day it is. And for the first time in all her time living in the empire, she was finally able to relax. The blonde man is a little embarrassed and then asks if the silver-haired lady would like to go out onto the balcony. The main character then replies that yes, and getting up from her chair, she thinks that she heard that this restaurant offers a wonderful view of the city. After they find themselves on the balcony, the main character admires the views and says how beautiful it is there. His Highness the Crown Prince says that this is his favorite place in the capital, and Link was just a small country built on a wasteland where monsters lived here and there. But thanks to the power of the Holy Grail, they managed to change the country. The main character understands that the power of the Grail cannot support their country forever. So she asks the prince if for the people of the empire, the Grail is not simply a symbol of peace and prosperity. The blonde replies that this is so, and the Grail instills in people the belief that their country is under the protection of God himself. But first and foremost, the people themselves care about this land and protect it. And the guy wants them to support the empire together in the future. The guy gets down on one knee and says that he wants this with all his heart, after which he kisses the main character's hand. The silver-haired lady is shocked by this, and the blonde man only gets up. And then he says that he loves Marie. The young lady looks at the guy's level of sympathy and sees that there is the number 48. Therefore, the girl thinks that this is her chance, and if she becomes the lover of the first prince of the Link Empire, then she will finally be able to take revenge on Lewis. But the main character says that unfortunately, she cannot respond to His Highness's feelings. After all, as he already knows, she is engaged to the Prince of the Kingdom of Rutonia. Initially, Prince Louis asks the girl to come to the Empire and steal one of their treasures. The Crown Prince asks which one, and the main character, remembering the Golden Grail, says that Prince Louis wanted the fall of the Link Empire. And to achieve his goal, he wanted to steal the Holy Grail. And the main character claims that she could not refuse him because their countries had been on friendly terms for many years, and it would have been easy for them to attack them if she refused. The blonde then asks if the young lady had entered into a fake engagement with Lester to support her home country. The main character then just nods and thinks that at the moment the percentage of sympathy is high enough for the guy to believe her, but there is no guarantee that he will take her side. The brunette takes the main character's hair in his hands and says that all this time he knew about Prince Louis's plans. And now I found out what the young lady had to go through. After which, the crown prince hugs the main character. The silver-haired lady is a little surprised by this and asks what His Highness is doing. But the prince replies that it is hard to even imagine what Marie had to go through. Maria wonders if the prince is trying to comfort her, and the blonde man approaches her ear. And he says that he no longer wants the young lady to bear this burden alone. After which he kisses her on the cheek and says that he wants to promise her something. The main character asks what he means, and His Highness the Crown Prince says that he will help the young lady save her homeland, but this will require her determination. Marie then smiles and agrees with His Highness. A little while later, they are already riding in a carriage, and the main character is thinking whether she did the right thing and whether her family will survive if she unites with her Alexander and opposes Louis. The blonde man looks out the window and asks if the young lady is now starting to get nervous around him. The main character is a little surprised by this and asks what His Highness is talking about, but the guy just sits down next to her and says that he can see everything in her eyes. The silver-haired lady says that it's not like that, and the blonde says that it's not surprising, because after such a romantic declaration of love, she couldn't help but be nervous. Maria then asks if His Highness is flirting with her. She herself thinks that, unfortunately, her thoughts are not about him now. The blonde man looks at the silver-haired lady and thinks that he is glad to see her smiling again. The main character thinks that she has no time for love now, and besides Alexander, she has another ally. After which, she turns to Mr. Alex Dot. And the blonde then claims that the young lady must want to talk about Lester. The guy understands that Marie sees him as her ally and trusts him, and this is not surprising. The main character says that yes, and she wants to return to the guest house to His Highness Lester and let the prince look after Ayah. The girl understands that in order to change the future, she needs to use all the resources she has. The prince agrees to her proposal and says that he also wants to be her ally. So if the young lady needs something, she can always safely ask him for help. The guy thinks that Maria is still very cautious with him and it will be difficult to gain her trust, but his feelings have not changed one bit. The main character only smiles after this and sincerely thanks His Highness. After which, the blonde smiles, and they spend the rest of the journey in silence. A little while later, the carriage arrives at Alexander's residence. When the main character gets out of the carriage, he basically grabs her hand. Alistair says that they are a bit late, after which he takes the young lady's hand from the hand of the crown prince and asks what His Highness is doing there. The silver-haired youth looks at these paired outfits, and then he approaches Marie and claims that he has come to take her, after which he smiles. The main character is a little surprised by this and does not know what to say. The young man with silver hair then apologizes and says that he should have invited her to the theater himself, but he even envies Alex a little, after which the second prince suggests going inside because he has prepared a surprise there. When the main character turns to His Highness the Crown Prince, he shows with the chicken that Lester should not know about their conversation and especially about his feelings. After which he smiles at the summer prince, and the main characters leave with the young man with silver hair. When they enter the building, the main character is met by her nanny. The girl, looking at Ayah, asks if she is feeling better already. The nanny then says with a smile on her face that it was all thanks to Milady's care and support, and she also found out that the girl had broken this time for her sake, so she thanks Milady Marie. The main character, looking at this rose, wonders if Lester saved that very rose. The nanny now says that His Highness gave her this gift, and he also prepared something especially for the young lady. After that, they go into one of the rooms, and the main character sees that there are a lot of flowers there. The glacier with silver hair then turns to His Highness, and Lester replies that it is just a gift, and he realized that the young lady prefers elegant flowers like Laurent's rose. The nanny says that now her room looks like a flower garden, and she even feels a little awkward. Maria smiles at this and then thanks His Highness for his concern, and it was a truly pleasant surprise. And then the main character sees that the guy's percentage of affection is already 33%. The girl understands that sympathy has increased again and says that His Highness has changed a lot. The girl remembers how in the past, the second prince was the one who played with the feelings of others. And now His Highness says that Marie gave him strength and hope that everything in this world can be changed. Well, in addition to the desired freedom from the shackles of the dwarf, he understood what he wanted. The silver-haired lady then asks him what he wants, and Lester thinks that he wants to be more than just a fake fiancé to her. But the guy decides not to say that, and he simply approaches the young lady and tells her to better answer why she and his older brother wear matching outfits. The main character claims that His Highness misunderstood everything, and they went into the trading house, after which they saw the outfits made in Darkuri, and then decided to try them on. They liked them so much that they decided to buy them. Well, looking at Lester's reaction, the main character thinks that he really didn't believe her again, and what should she do? So the girl asks if he is angry. His Highness the Second Prince says that usually when lovers are angry, it is customary to calm them down. The silver-haired leader is a little surprised by this phrase, and His Highness just leans towards her and tells her to hurry. The main character thinks that she has no choice anyway, after which she whispers words of apology in the guy's ear and says that this will not happen again. After that, looking at the affection meter, the silver-haired boy sees that it is 38%. Lester then suggests to the young lady that they go shopping together, since he has been thinking about updating his wardrobe for a long time. The main character then says that she is of course not against it, and she herself sees that the young man's sympathy has grown so much that he is not angry. The second prince at this time is thinking that he should buy the young lady an engagement ring so that there will be no questions about their relationship. And the main character, when she looks at the percentage of affection, sees that it has increased again, is out for today, but that tomorrow they will spend the day alone together. The lady behind the silver hair then turns to look at her watch and wonders what time it is. The girl sees that it is already late and asks if His Highness is leaving already. Lester says that this is his brother's residence, so even though he wants to stay, he has no desire to anger him. The main character then says goodbye to His Highness, and she thinks that it's not the first time they've spent time alone. But for some reason, approaching trains feel especially exciting. Silver-haired young man bids Marie goodnight and then leaves. At this time, Alexander is in his bath. He remembers how he confessed his feelings to Marie and wonders if he has any chances. The guy then clicks his tongue and wonders what he was even thinking when he said that. The Link Empire and the Rutonia Kingdom were always on tense terms, and if he tried to protect Marie, who would it inevitably lead to a military conflict? Well, His Highness the Crown Prince understands that he wants to save the girl, and for this he is ready to sacrifice a lot. The next morning, the main character opens the window, and there a dove flies to her. The girl understands that yesterday she already sent a letter to Louis, where she wrote that everything is going according to their plans, and she arranged a fake engagement with the second prince of the empire in order to get closer to the Holy Grail. And the prince of the kingdom of Rutonia replied that it hurt him to hear that the young lady had to pretend to be someone's bride, and it broke his heart. The main character then crumples the piece of paper and thinks that she no longer believes in such things, after which she reads the next line, which says that in fact, in the near future, the guy was thinking of sending her an assistant and then arriving himself to the Link Empire to meet with her personally in order to discuss the further plan. The main character wonders what he is talking about and whether he has really begun to suspect her. The girl understands that she cannot allow extra eyes, and especially his arrival there. Therefore, the girl writes in the sheet that the situation is not so critical yet to send help to her, and the new employee in the royal palace may seem overly suspicious. The main character understands that she should also write to him about her love for him to show that she is still on his side, after which the young lady finishes writing the letter and sends the dove. The girl understands that she still couldn't write about her feelings, and the line about how she's worried about Louis is the only thing she could squeeze out of herself. And she also wrote at the end of the letter that she doesn't want to put Louis at risk. Silver-haired Lollipops thinks she should discuss this situation with Alex, after which the main character rings the bell and the maid enters the room, asking if her mistress called her. The silver-haired lady then turns to her and asks if the maid could get her ready to go out. Then the silver-haired lady looks at her maid's sympathy and sees the number 23 there. The main character understands that she now uses her gift without a second thought, without attaching any importance to it. But as a child, she considered it a real curse. Despite her status, she was bullied because of her cursed eye. When the main character looked at her classmates' affection, she saw only negative numbers there. But when Louis entered the class, he claimed that a person is beautiful the way he is, and even if a young lady has a power that they cannot understand, this is not a reason to make fun of her. After which he turned to Maria and said that if she was bullied again, she should speak up about it. The main character saw that his sympathy was 75%, and the girl fell for these numbers, thinking that the guy really loved her. But there won't be a second time. When the young lady leaves her room, she meets Elliot and wishes him good morning. The red-haired boy then asks if the girl wants to visit her brother. The main character says yes, and if he is not busy, of course. A little while later, they are already near the room of His Highness the Crown Prince. The red-haired prince knocks on his room door and Alexander asks who is there, after which the fifth prince says that it is he and enters the room, wishes his brother good morning, after which he says that he brought cold water with lemon as he asked for. The blonde when he thanks his brother, and the main character then video naked torso of the young man is a little embarrassed and apologizes for the intrusion. The crown prince says that she doesn't need to apologize and then asks if the girl wanted to talk to him about something. The main character then asks if His Highness has noticed anything strange happening in the royal palace, such as new servants or rumors. The blonde replies that no, and he hasn't heard anything like that. The silver-haired lady thinks that the capital has very strict security control, and even if Alex didn't hear anything, the spy hasn't penetrated the empire yet. The Prince of Vada's legacy thinks that something is clearly bothering the young lady, so he approaches Marie and claims that he did say that if something was bothering the girl, she could share it with him, and he will try to help her in any way he can. The main character at this time looks at the level of sympathy of the prince and sees 48% there. But the girl understands that it's not even about these numbers, and the prince always helped me, even in difficult moments. So the silver-haired lady takes Alexander's hand and places it on her cheek. The crown prince is a little embarrassed by this, and Maria says that a spy from Rutonia will soon infiltrate the capital, so it is worth strengthening security. His Highness the Crown Prince says he understands and then turns to Elliot. The red-haired boy bows and says that he heard him, then leaves. The blonde asks the main character what her plans are for today, and the girl replies that she will be busy all day. And in her thoughts, she adds that she did promise someone that they would spend this day just the two of them. The blonde then turns to Marie and asks if she will spend him in Lester's company. The main character thinks that it was obvious, and the blonde, not hearing the answer to his question, says that he is even envious. The lady with silver hair is embarrassed by such words, and the prince then smiles and says that he is joking, after which he advises them to walk through the royal quarter. After all, during the celebration, he looks especially beautiful. The main character in response, but it smiles, and thanks Mr. Alex for the advice. At this time, you are in the kingdom of Rutonia. The prince sits on the bed with a woman and says that it seems that everything is going according to plan. The girl lying next to him asks what they write to him there. The brunette sees that it says that his subordinates have almost reached the capital of the empire, and everything is going according to his orders. Louis tells the girl that it is not so important, but she tells the brunette not to be so mean and to tell her. Louis then says that Link has a treasure that he wants to take for himself. The girl with a smile on her face says that it is quite mean, and the prince thinks that this dumb girl can't even read. The girl then asks when Louis will steal him and if she can look at him. The prince then throws the letter away and claims that of course, but he realizes that he doesn't even remember the girl's name. At this point, she asks if Louis will marry her. The brunette is silent for a while and then with a smile on his face says yes. But he himself thinks how boring this girl is. But he needs a woman who will be much smarter and more useful than this, like his beautiful Marie, for example. At this time, Lester is in one of the jewelry stores. The shop worker asks if he wants to do an engraving, and the second prince replies that yes, and let them engrave Lester on one ring and Marie on the other. The worker says that they will do as His Highness wishes, and as soon as they finish, they will send them to the address he indicated. The second prince, looking at the silver ring, smiles and thanks the worker. A little while later, he is already heading towards the main character, and she claims that His Highness looks great. The guy in the white suit just thanks her for such a warm compliment. He takes the main character's hand in his and then offers to go on a journey. Maria thinks that the letter still haunts her, and Lester sees that the young lady is thinking a little. She wonders if something is bothering her. The second prince claims that her dress was not delivered to Alex's residence in time, and that it is such a pity. The main character asks what he is talking about, and His Highness the second prince says that today he wanted to walk through the streets of the capital in paired outfits, just like he and Alex did. The silver-haired ladies only smile in response and ask if His Highness still remembers that incident. The guy then asks how else, because during the celebration, his beloved and his brother walked around in matching outfits and it hurt his heart. Maria then says that they are not in love with each other. Lester then places his hand on the young lady's hand and says that she is right. However, one word from her and they will become a real couple. The main character then pinches his hand and tells the prince to stop joking like that and asks if he just wants to tease her. The silver-haired boy says how rude it is and claims that he didn't even try, but he thinks that it seems like the young lady managed to relax a little. After which he turns to their main character and says that she was so thoughtful at the beginning of the trip, after which he asks if something happened. The main character is silent for a while and thinks whether she should tell about Louis's message, but the girl thinks that the new spy has not yet penetrated the empire, and maybe this will not even happen. after which she says that she has something that she would like to tell. But now it is not so important, and the prince wanted to spend time with her and also have fun. So the main character suggests leaving this conversation for later. The second prince agrees to this and says that since his beloved wants it, they will do so. The main character then claims that she is not his beloved, but only plays her role. The guy thinks that her excitement will subside after this evening, after which he puts his hand on hers and tells his fake lover Marie that he has a favor to ask of her. The main character asks what it is, and the young man with silver hair claims that he wants to take her to the clock tower that stands in the center, because the view from it is simply magical. The main character asks if he is talking about the clock tower, and if the prince wants it so much, then so be it. His Highness thinks that there he will give the young lady a ring and finally confess his feelings. And the main character notices that his hand is shaking and tells His Highness that he is nervous. The silver-haired boy says that everything is not like that at all. But he himself thinks that he can do very little, after which he turns to Maria and says that he also wants to ask her to call him by his name from this day on. The main character then calls His Highness Mr. Lester with a smile. A little while later, they are already there, and Lester extends his hand to the young lady, helping her out of the carriage. A very suspicious man in a robe is watching all this. He uses his magical powers. Lester looks up and becomes a little wary because blood starts flying out of the house, after which the young man with silver hair pushes the main character away. And at that very moment, a pile of stones falls on him. Everyone is shocked by this, and the main character screams for a doctor to be brought immediately. The knights immediately run to the scene, and people nearby whisper that it was the second prince. The suspicious person who used magic then clenches his teeth and turns around, then leaves. A couple of hours later, the main character is already at Alex's residence. The young man with red hair says that the situation is worse than ever, and even if his brother survives, he will most likely not be able to walk for the rest of his life. The silver-haired lady is shocked by this news. The girl's hands begin to shake, and the main character says that the roof tiles could not have fallen on them, and it could have hit the carriage and fallen right on them. That's why Maria says that there is no doubt that the roof did not collapse on itself, and that the magician attacked them. The fifth prince is surprised by this and asks if it is a magician. Then he clenches his fists and thinks that this bastard used magic to harm innocent people. Elliot says that there aren't many wizards in their empire who could have created something like this in the first place. The magician's target was not Lester, but the young lady. At this time, the maid knocks on their door. When the main character opens the door, she asks what she wants so much. The girl apologizes, but claims that an order has arrived for His Highness Lester. He was originally supposed to be taken to the clock tower, but since His Highness was injured, he was sent there instead. The main character, looking into the box, sees that there are 2 rings with the engraving of the names Lester and Marie. The silver-haired lady thanks the maid for bringing it, and she thinks that this is why the prince wanted to go to this clock tower. But when the main character looks at his sympathy meter, the girl realizes that she can barely see the percentage, and Lester is fighting for his life. Maria apologizes for opening his order without asking permission, but the guy has to wake up to give her this ring, after which she places her hand on His Highness's head and thinks that he was involved in her terrible story, and ended up suffering at the hands of those she swore revenge on, after which the young lady steps back and asks if the Holy Grail can save Mr. Lester's legs and life. The girl understands that on that day she swore that no one else would die because of her. The red-haired boy is silent for a moment and then replies that yes, and the Holy Grail can save Lester's life. However, it is carefully hidden, and all 5 princes are required to regularly take care of the safety of the Grail, as well as change its storage location. During the celebration, Lester was obliged to hide the Grail. The girl realizes that she knows what, just like in the previous timeline. After all, that's why Lester became her target in the past. The young lady knows for sure that this time the Grail is hidden in the clock tower. The fifth prince then states that unfortunately, even if we have a way to cure Lester, without his intervention, they will not be able to find the Grail. The main character understands that she knows exactly where you are in the clock tower. He is hidden and behind her memories. However, the girl understands that if she finds him without Lester's help, she may again be considered a spy. The red-haired boy says that all they can do is wait, and Maria then realizes that she cannot allow Lester to fall into eternal sleep. So the silver-haired lady turns to His Highness and says that she knows where the Holy Grail is hidden. The fifth prince is shocked by this, and the young lady asks him to go with her to the high tower. The girl asks him in her mind not to ask how she knows this, and the young man with red hair then uses magic and asks where the Holy Grail is, after which he tells the girl to say it right now and holds out his hand. Maria decisively replies that he is on the roof of the clock tower. At that very moment, they teleport to this place, and the main character says that in order to get the grail, it is necessary to act according to precise instructions. The girl understands that if they make even one mistake, they will have to start over. Therefore, she claims that first the stone statue has a globe in its right hand, and it needs to be rotated 3 times clockwise. The young man with red hair does so, and after that, a ladder begins to appear in the air. When Mary steps on it, the young man thinks how the girl found out the location of the grail. But when they are already climbing up, the young lady pulls the rope. And after that, another entrance opens. The red-haired boy asks if this is a secret door and is about to go there. But the silver-haired lady stops him and says it's a trap. After which, Maria lifts one of the tiles and takes out a key from under it. The main character understands that she needs to get the key from the floorboard and go to the bookshelf. There, you need to click on the 8th book on the right side in the bottom row, the 2nd one on the left in the middle row, and the 5th one on the right in the top row. Elliot looks at the girl and thinks that she follows the instructions with amazing accuracy, and thinks that Lester told her everything. But the guy does not understand why. At this time, the shelves move apart and a box is visible there, after which the main character takes it out and takes the grail. Looking at the relic, the girl thinks that everything is like last time. The young man with red hair at this time suggests returning to Lester, and the main character extends her hand to him and agrees. A little while later, they already find themselves in Alexander's residence. Elliot tells the young lady to give him the grail, after which the boy fills the grail with water. And a little while later, the young lady is already trying to get Lester drunk. The silver-haired lady understands that if he does not take a single sip, the power of the grail will not work. No. After which she grabs a towel and waves it with water, trying to at least give the young man a drink. But the girl is shocked because she sees that the affection scale is becoming murkier. After which, the main character, with tears in her eyes, pours all the remaining water from the grail onto the prince's face and wonders if she can't save him. After all, the girl promised that she would help him gain freedom and Lester should not have left her. But suddenly, Elliot and the silver-haired lady notice that the guy is starting to wake up. The main character screams Lester's name and is glad that he finally woke up. The second prince only asks where he is. Not understanding what has already happened, the young man with red hair supports him. Maria then jumps up to Lester and says that thank God he is safe. The girl apologizes and says that it is all because of her. The silver-haired young man asks what she's talking about. The main character replies that most likely her fiancé sent a mercenary to get rid of her. But His Highness saved her life. The red-haired boy thinks that the fact that Lady Darkuri knew about the location of the grail makes him think differently. However, the young lady wanted to save Lester first and foremost, so he would not interrogate her this time. The silver-haired boy says that Marie is not guilty of anything, and the main character says that the prince almost died because of her. And then Lester says that she almost drank poison from the glass of his crazy bride. And they knew what they were getting into when they entered into an alliance. The main character says a little sadly that she knows, and in her thoughts, she adds that when she was faced with the harsh reality, she could not imagine how terrible it is to lose a person through one's own fault. Lester watches in silence for a while, then asks if since he's alive he deserves a hug. The silver-haired lady is a little embarrassed and asks what he's talking about, but she thinks that Elliot is there. Lester just tells Marie that he's okay, and then tells the silver-haired lady to look at him. The main character thinks a little and considers whether she should do this, but then she decides to embrace the second prince. The silver-haired boy claims that he always thought only of himself, but he saw how the young lady was willing to risk everything for him, and he wanted to reciprocate. That's why the guy now hugs the main character and says that he's glad that he was able to protect her. Lester strokes the young lady's hair, and she thinks that even though the criminal has not yet been found, she cannot relax. But Maria thinks she's so happy that everything ended well. Elliot standing to the side. He says he thinks he clearly doesn't belong there. The crown prince is outside at the time. The boy thinks that there are many people there, after which he orders his wards to continue searching and he will visit Lester. The servants obey their master. The blonde then jumps on his horse and heads to his residence. Alexander realizes that his brother is seriously injured and hopes that he is alive. After that, he immediately runs to the door and opens it. Breathing heavily, the crown prince asks if Lester has woken up. But the boy is shocked when he sees his brother with the silver-haired lady. The blonde, looking at the two of them, thinks what is going on there, and seeing the Holy Grail in Elliot's hands, he is even more surprised. His Highness the Crown Prince becomes wary and asks what the Holy Grail is doing there. This relic is the main treasure of the Empire, and it appeared there out of nowhere. The main character thinks that she needs to come up with something and needs at least some kind of justification. The silver-haired boy looks at the Holy Grail and now understands why it survived. Well, the young man understands that only he knew where this relic was, so he wonders how they found it. At this time, the Crown Prince asks if they have anything to answer. The main character doesn't even know what to say, and the young man with red hair raises his hand and tells his brother that it was he who brought him there to save Lester. His Highness the Crown Prince then asks how his brother knew where the Holy Grail was hidden this year, and the magician answers that, in truth, he had been watching Lester since the beginning of the celebration and knew where he had hidden it. Alexander then looks at his brother with distrust and then sighs, after which he asks if he knows how to get him back. Elliot replies that yes, and the silver-haired lady thinks that His Highness the Fifth Prince saved her. At this time, the blonde man claims that he will talk to the two of them when he returns and teleports away with the Fifth Prince. The main character says that it is good. And His Highness the Crown Prince and his brother are in the chapel at this time. The young man with red hair asks if he should return the grail to its original place, and his brother then takes the box in his hands and says that no, and they will change the place where the grail is hidden. But before answering, he tells Elio to confess to him, and then asks what he is hiding. The Fifth Prince is a little shocked by this, thinking that Alexander has perfectly recognized his lie. His Highness the Crown Prince says that his brother must understand how each of the princes tries to come up with new ways to hide the grail year after year. And in his thoughts, he adds that Elliot would not lie to him without a reason. The guy thinks that knowing Lester, he hid the Holy Grail well and he always approaches this matter with caution. However, if he told the location of the grail to Marie, then everything fits. But the blonde says that he doesn't understand why the girl needs to know where the Holy Grail is hidden. Then one of the books falls on his brother, and His Highness the Crown Prince sees that the magician cannot cope with it. Then he asks if Marie has found the Holy Grail. The magician doesn't even know what to answer, and the blonde then claims that he can consider his silence as an answer. Elliot then screams and tells His Highness that even if it is so, it is not what he thinks. Alexander cries out that the young lady's knowledge is suspicious. When the two teleported, the magic circle gradually began to disappear. Lester turns to Marie and asks if she could get him some clean clothes. The main character then turns around and says that she will help him, and the young man with silver hair says that there is no need and he can handle it himself. But if she insists, then he doesn't mind the audience. The main character doesn't understand what the prince is talking about, and when she sees that he starts to take off the bandages and how the blanket almost slips off his hips, then the lady with silver hair gets embarrassed and screams that she is already leaving, after which she does so. Lester, seeing this, only smiles, and then his gaze is caught by that very box standing on the nightstand. A young man with silver hair approaches her and says that since he survived, he will have to do this. The main character stands behind the door and wonders whether Alexander will interrogate her about the Holy Grail. But the girl understands that now she is concerned about finding the culprit, and she will no longer allow her loved ones to suffer because of her. At this time, the main character hears someone approaching from behind the door. It turns out to be a young man with silver hair who has already changed his clothes. He opens the door and turns to Marie. The main character asks if he has changed his clothes yet, and the second prince replies yes and then asks Marie to extend her hand. When the main character does this, Lester puts the ring on her finger, and the lady with silver hair remembers how she told the prince while he was unconscious and apologized for opening the order without his permission. It stated that the guy must wake up to give her the ring. The silver-haired boy says that she is still his bride, so the ring is rightfully hers. The main character smiles at this, and the second prince says that, to tell the truth, he wanted to present it in a more romantic place. But Red, having plunged into eternal sleep, he realized how short their life was, and since he was alive, he decided that there was no point in hiding it anymore. After which, Lester tells Marie that he loves her and kisses the girl's hand. After which, he claims that he wants their love to be true. The silver-haired lady looks at his meter and sees the number 51. The main character thinks that he even knows about her engagement to Louis and still decided to take such a step. Maria asks Mr. Lester if he has decided to put a ring on her for real. The silver-haired boy wonders who this mysterious woman is and claims that this ring is a talisman against his older brother. The boy claims that he does not intend to give up Marie's heart to him. The silver-haired lady then recalls what happened between her and His Highness the Crown Prince. And the silver-haired boy then asks if Alex has already managed to do something. The main character says that of course not. And Lester then says that Marie is only his beloved. He takes the young lady's hand in his. And the main character is very embarrassed by this and tells His Highness to stop making fun of her. Lester then smiles and says okay, and then claims that they still have something they need to discuss right now. A little while later, they find themselves near a table with a map and discussing something important. The silver-haired boy looks at the main character and thinks that he is finally spending time alone with her. At this time, His Highness the Crown Prince and his brother are in the chapel. The blonde man says that only from Lester could the young lady have learned the location of the grail, and that means that all this time she most likely really was a spy. He then tells Elliot to turn away and claims that he will hide the Holy Grail. The red-haired boy listens to his brother and then disappears, and the blonde boy then hides him. His Highness the Crown Prince thinks they need to find the culprit. He then hides the box behind the painting of the mechanism and turns to Elliot, and orders him to teleport them to the area where Lester was attacked, after which he extends his hand and the two of them teleport away. 3 hours later, they have already finished searching, and His Highness the Crown Prince asks his brother if he found anything. The fifth prince says that their criminal left no traces, so there is a possibility that he escaped via teleportation. The blonde thinks that it won't be easy to find the criminal magician, but suddenly someone comes up to him from behind and addresses His Highness. It turns out to be a couple of aristocrats. The woman claims that she heard that His Highness Lester is in terrible condition and asks if he will recover. And the man asks His Highness whether this was just a sudden incident or an attack on the second prince. The blonde then says that they have nothing to worry about as long as he stands guard over their kingdom, because no invader will get there. The aristocrat is a little puzzled by this answer, and the woman says that it is time for them to go. At this time, a knight runs up to His Highness the Crown Prince and cries out to His Highness that the king is waiting. Alexander then says that it's okay, and then he will go, and he orders his wards to continue the investigation. A little while later, the young man is already next to his father, and his father asks how he dared to allow an attempt on the life of a royal person. The emperor claims that he even allowed him to take this sorcerer into his family. Alexander then asks his father to listen to him, and says that this incident happened purely because he let his guard down, and Elliot had nothing to do with it. The emperor then throws a glass of wine at his son and says that if he does not find the culprit, then he'll put all the blame on this boy. The blonde then cries out whether his father will put all the blame on Elliot, but he is not guilty of anything. The emperor then cries out, asking whether his son dares to contradict him, and he claims that this youth is the very offspring of the wicked. The emperor understands that he must give him incommensurable conditions, after which he says that if his son does not find the culprit within 3 days, he will send this youth to Rutonia. The blonde is a little wary of this and thinks that his father treats Elliot as if he is some kind of weapon, after which Alexander rises from his seat and turns around saying that he will find the culprit within 3 days. Then the main character wishes his father all the best and leaves the room. That same evening, His Highness the Crown Prince turns to Elliot, who asks for forgiveness and claims that no new information could be discovered. The blonde then turns around and looks at his brother, who asks if anything was shaking. Alexander replies that no, and he himself thinks that he needs to save Elliot's life and find the culprit so that the ceremony is successful. And these are difficult tasks that must be completed in a short time frame, but he is not fighting alone. When Alexander knocks on one of the rooms, the main character opens the door for him. When a girl sees Alex, she thinks that he is rather gloomy, after which the lady with silver hair and also with a smile on her face asks Mr. Alex what happened to him, and then he tells them to come in. His Highness the Crown Prince is a little surprised by this and enters the room, and he himself is a little embarrassed. Lester is already in the room and asks if they found the criminal. The blonde says that unfortunately no, and it's as if he's cleaned up all traces of himself. The silver-haired ladies ask what His Highness the Crown Prince is talking about, and Lester then asks if he could escape from the Empire. The main character thinks for a moment and says that no, he is still there. And His Highness the Crown Prince asks why the young lady is so sure of this. The silver-haired lady then says that it is because Lester was immediately sent to his royal palace for treatment, and the criminal doesn't know whether the second prince is alive or not, and the blonde then asks, will the attacker leave the Empire until he is convinced of this? And the lady with silver hair says that this is true, after which he asks His Highness Elliot if he can become invisible. The red-haired boy is a little surprised by such a request, but says that of course he can, after which he becomes invisible. The main character says that it is great, and then tells him not to move. The young lady wonders if she can see his sympathy even without seeing the prince himself. And when a girl uses her ability, she sees a sympathy scale in the air. Maria realizes that she sees a percentage but does not see a person, after which she comes a little closer to these percentages and thinks that if they are there, then the guy's face must be somewhere below. The young man with red hair thinks what all this is for, and the main character at this time begins to feel him up. The girl understands that although she is not the prince's visit, she can feel him by touch. She feels the fifth prince's face and also his chest. The other two princes wonder what is going on, and Elliot then removes the young lady's hand and sheepishly asks her to stop. But when he looks at the silver-haired lady's face, he sees that she is all red. The main character shyly asks for forgiveness, and the young man with red hair is also embarrassed and says that he is not angry with her. Alexander looks at his brother a little coldly, and the main character sees that Elliot's sympathy percentage is now 39%. At this time, His Highness the Crown Prince approaches the young lady and asks why she asked Elliot to use magic. The silver-haired lady says that she can see people even when using invisibility magic. All three princes are surprised by this. The main character thinks that the sympathy percentage can be omitted. His Highness the Crown Prince then asks if the girl could have seen Elliot all this time, and the silver-haired lady claims that it was necessary to make sure, because with her power they would be able to find the criminal. The red-haired youth then asks how the young lady is going to look for the criminal, because their capital is huge and it is impossible to go around it even in a week. The silver-haired lady only claims that the criminal will come to them himself, but His Highness the Crown Prince asks what the young lady is talking about, and the main character then says that it is important for the criminal to find out the truth whether Lester is alive or not.